One Piece Supreme Control, Chapter 261-280. Chapter 261 Death. The huge sea curtain was like a barrier, setting off a huge tsunami. Behind Yangqing, an angry roar roared, and the momentum was shocking and terrifying to the extreme. This crazy scene made countless pirates scream in horror, which is no longer something that humans can do. Two people in the sky, one controls more than a dozen islands and merges into a huge island, and the other turns into a ferocious beast. With a roar in the sky, the tsunami bursts. When the Golden Lion saw what Yangqing had done, his pupils shrank, and his heart was so shocked that he couldn't help it. This kid, how the hell did he do it? The huge island brought strong winds, and the tsunami surged forward like a long. After 5 breaths, the two sides collided fiercely. Boom! The sea water splashed wildly, the island shook violently, and the people on it suffered great disasters and fled in panic. This is a natural disaster that scares people. Sea water, earthquakes, at this moment, make the people living in these dozen islands feel hopeless. Roar! The huge unicorn beast let out a roar that shook the sky, moved its feet, and came to the top of the island the next moment. Its speed is also unbelievably fast. In the shock of the whole body, a circle of ripples spread out, and the invisible mask spread, covering the entire huge island in an instant. Next moment, the tsunami was diverted, the island trembled, and a small continent was raised, only a kilometer in diameter. Countless humans screamed in horror and flew up, and then they were gathered on the continent. The deep voice exploded like thunder, making the people who escaped the disaster look up. This is not where you should be, go elsewhere. The sound of rumbling came out, and the small continent passed through the void and flew away quickly. The people on the island looked up at the ferocious beast with a trace of gratitude in their eyes. Lord Savior! It's our Savior! I almost thought I was going to die. The brutal Golden Lion, it's not enough to enslave us, but it wants to brutally kill us. Who is that person? It seems that he is called Death, and he is the captain of the legendary Death Pirates. On the flying island, thousands of people looked up in admiration and looked at the ferocious beast in the sky, but they were very grateful. Then everyone saw that the ferocious giant beast stepped on the huge island in the next moment, stepping the island out of the deep pit, and countless dust flew. With a roar in the sky, the giant beast's pupils stared at the Golden Lion coldly. 2 seconds later, the Golden Lion came to the giant beast, with the same killing intent in his eyes. Roar! The strong wind blew up, the flames burned, and the thunder and lightning filled the air. The unicorn giant beast shook the earth and rushed towards the Golden Lion. A second later, the two fought together again. Bang! The huge claws and the double swords on the feet of the Golden Lion bombarded together, and a large area of land began to collapse. The Golden Lion's eyes shrank, his right leg shook, the clods rolled, and the ground in a radius of 1,000 meters rumbled. Lion power, terrain long roll. Roar! 4 or 5 100-meter huge lions rose from Yangqing's side and bit him fiercely. Boom! A slight voice sounded, and the ferocious unicorn roared in the sky, and a wave of invisible and strange power spread around it. The moment this power spread to the huge lion, it was shocked. The originally fierce lion actually began to change and twist. After 2 breaths, turned into a unicorn, and attacked the Golden Lion instead. This kid, the Golden Lion's face changed greatly, and his ability actually lost its effect at this moment. What kind of abilities does he have? Zoology, superhuman. The Golden Lion usually doesn't take the Death God pirates to heart. There are many people in the world whose reputation is greater than their strength. In his heart, the Death God pirates are such a character. But after really fighting with this guy, he found that he was wrong, and it was very wrong. The guy in front of him not only has the same level of body reflexes, strength and speed as his own, but his fruit ability is even more terrifying. Your time has passed, Golden Lion. With a roar, the unicorn's feet were forced behind him, his forelimbs lifted, and then he crashed down and slammed toward the tiny human below. This blow, with the power of 10,000, brought out the ability to control the fruit, causing the surrounding earth to rumble, forming a huge slender pendant, which pierced the bottom together. Golden Lion. I want you to die. His face changed greatly, and the Golden Lion could not dodge this attack. He shook the ground with his right foot, and at the same time, the ground within a kilometer behind him trembled, forming a huge lion between the lightning and flint, blocking him. Then, with a movement of his body, he jumped up in the air, and his legs kept kicking out. The huge sword chi flew out and rushed towards the huge unicorn. Roar! The ferocious unicorn is as imposing as a rainbow, with strength like a mountain, stepping on it with both feet and driving the earth. Its power is extremely terrifying. Boom! The huge island trembled, and explosions continued to occur around the two of them. The huge lion, facing the unicorn's step, collapsed and destroyed, and the sword energy released by the Golden Lion touched the unicorn's feet in an instant, but the hot flame and the flashing electric arc disintegrated into white. The fog can't do any damage to the unicorn. Then, the thick, big pair and legs slammed on the top of the Golden Lion's head. The dust flew up and the ground caved in. The Golden Lion trembled, and this enormous power fell on his body without a trace, making his whole being. This chapter is not over. Click on the next page to continue reading. They were all stunned. Blood flowed from the corners of their mouths, and the feet that resisted the unicorn's attack made a sound of gold and iron, and kept shaking. Trembling. This power is simply unstoppable, and one person and one beast form a confrontation at this moment. But 3 seconds later, the unicorn lifted its forelimbs. Yangtian let out another roar, the wind whistled, the flames burned, the thunder and lightning roared, and then it crashed down again. Bang! The ground collapsed for the second time, the Golden Lion spit out a mouthful of blood, and the whole person was directly stepped on the ground, and his face was pale. Die! The unicorn spit out human words, cold and gloomy. With this cold voice, the whole island trembled, and the earth with a radius of 10,000 meters rumbled and began to rise towards the sky, and then moved towards the sea like waves. Rolling inside, the target is the Golden Lion. The unicorn had a plan to bury the Golden Lion alive here. Suppressed with a powerful force and suppressed by the strange fruit ability, in an instant, it completely took the upper hand. Chapter 262 After the victory. The ground of the entire huge island was lifted almost at this moment. This shocking scene made countless people look excited and shocked in their hearts. Especially the crew of the Death God pirates. They once again saw that their captain was able to make a move, that kind of earth-shattering and invincible power, which made countless people look forward to it. This is their captain, the overlord of the new world. This shot will surely shake the whole world again, making the world tremble. Shake. At this moment, the Golden Lion was completely crushed. Boom. The sound of the sky is like thunder, and it keeps ringing. The surface of the huge island was directly lifted by a mysterious force, causing countless people to scream. The unicorn stood in the center, surrounded by tall clods, and with a roar, countless heavy clods were buried directly below the Golden Lion. He stepped on into the deep pit. 10 seconds later, a high mound was piled up here, and the Golden Lion was completely buried in it. Keelin took a step back, glanced here, and then raised his feet again. The next moment, slammed down. The mound trembled, shrunk by 5 meters, and became more solid. Your era has long since passed, so just follow the Lois and turn into a piece of dust. A dull voice came from Keelin's mouth, and the battlefield was still. The whole island shook, then fell towards the bottom, and after 3 seconds, it sank deeply into the sea below. Standing in the void, the unicorn is surrounded by flames, lightning flashes, and its majesty and domineering make countless people fear and admire. Roar. With a roar from the sky, a domineering aura swept out from the Keelin's body, spreading in all directions in an instant. The countless crew members of the Golden Lion pirates below, their eyes turned white, fell down on the deck, losing all their fighting power. There were only a few captains left alone, weak all over, standing there with difficulty, looking at the huge ferocious beast in the sky in horror. Their hearts were trembling and shaking. Keelan glanced around and glanced at their figures, seemingly ignoring them completely, and then his figure changed and returned to Yang Qing's appearance. With a grim expression and his black hair swaying in the breeze, Yang Qing at this moment gave off an awe-inspiring and inviolable feeling, and in the eyes of the thousands of civilians just now, he became a godlike existence. In the eyes of these people, Yang Qing is the real god, the god of death. Save their god of death. Golden Lion, defeated. Under the terrifying attack of the monstrous beast unicorn, no one was able to survive, not to mention, everyone saw with their own eyes the terrifying golden figure, buried in the mound, and even the island sank. In the bottom of the sea, until this moment, the huge island has not risen again. Devil fruit ability, and was completely crushed under a hill, even a golden lion, I am afraid that it will not survive. A white cloud appeared on the bottom of his feet, and Yang Qing quickly flew towards his crew. 5 seconds later, he stood in front of Dylan and the others. Glancing at the crew in front of him, he saw the respectful eyes of the crew members. At this moment, the Death God pirates fell into a strange silence. Looking at the captain, the crew seemed to have thousands of words to say, but they couldn't say a word. This was a strange feeling, but there was no doubt that everyone was extremely excited. Cough, this heavy burden is still handed over to you, making people feel more at ease. Dylan struggled to stand up. His body was extremely weak, but at this moment he stood up abruptly by his own will. You've done a good job, Yang Qing said seriously. Then he looked at all the crew members in front of him, suddenly bent down deeply, and bowed. Thank you for everything you've done for the Death God pirates. There was silence, and the excitement on the faces of the crew suddenly changed color at this moment, turning into shock, and they screamed in horror. No, Captain, we didn't do anything, boss, you do the most. You have defeated that legendary character, the Golden Lion, you have been defeated, boss, you are the one who paid the most. Captain, don't do this, we're so ashamed. Get up, boss. Yang Qing bent down deeply, thanking the crew members from the bottom of his heart. He knew very well what kind of war the war with the Golden Lion was. In this battle, he used almost all of his strength, and he himself had the confidence to fight against the 4 emperors. But what about the crew? They are still young crew members, and their strength is far from that of the Golden Lion. Is Dylan's weak? Of course not weak, but he's still lost, easily and badly. What's more, these crew members, these people, can be said to really put their heads on the belts of their trousers and mix with themselves. They are their closest partners. In this war, there is no victory in a war. These people at the lowest level have paid the most, they have suffered the most injuries, and suffered the most casualties. Shouldn't these people be grateful? No one can help Yang Qing up, and no one can refuse his will. 3 seconds later, on the 10 large ships, countless crew members of the Death God pirates slammed and all knelt on the deck. They looked at the figure bent over, inexplicable in their hearts. He is domineering like a king, powerful like a god, but he doesn't have the slightest arrogance in his heart. He treats himself like a real brother. If he is hurt, he will be furious, even if it is the legendary big pirate. He will not let go, dare to roar angrily, and kill each other abruptly. Such a captain deserves the admiration of countless people. Captain, we should be thankful. This chapter is not over. Click on the next page to continue reading. For the Death God pirates, throw our heads and shed blood, we will die. There was a bang, shaking like thunder, and the crew roared with tears in their eyes. These are moved tears, and it is the happiness that Maxima met Bull, thank God for letting them meet such a pirate. Their captain, who really has the heart of the sea, can accommodate everything, his strength, his embrace, and everything. Yang Qing slowly raised his head, a smile appeared on his face, and with his smile, the faces of the entire Death God pirates crew showed a smile. As if he alone could infect everyone present. Everyone, this battle is won. Please go back with me and have a victory banquet. Chapter 263 Colonel Rosanity. The entire Death God pirates burst into laughter, and the atmosphere changed instantly. Ha ha ha, of course, boss, I've been looking forward to it. Then, go back quickly, what are you still doing here? Yang Qing shouted with a big laugh. He stretched out. With his right hand, he waved suddenly. Set sail, go home. Go home. Before we celebrate, though, we have one more important thing to do. Soon, the entire Death God pirate ship returned to their respective positions, and the 10th team members separated again. 3 days later, more than 100 pirate ships flocked around the island that was destroyed by the Golden Lion. The island that was originally complete is now torn apart and devastated. Yang Qing and the others stood on the bow of the Reaper. Their faces were serious, and their eyes were full of sadness. Toast! With a loud shout, Yang Qing's voice spread throughout the sea. More than 100 pirates put them on, and all the pirates looked solemn, moved their right hands, and held up the wine bowl in front of them. Send our dead brothers, hope they will still be pirates in the next life. The voice is melodious and loud, and it travels far and far. Yang Qing picked up the wine jar in front of him, pulled it up with one hand, and then tilted his neck. The transparent wine exuded the aroma of wine and poured it into Yang Qing's mouth. Boom, boom. A series of drinking sounds came out, and the whole sea area was filled with the drinking sounds. To our brothers. Picking up another jar of wine in front of him, Yang Qing moved towards the sea in front of the island, and the clear wine flowed into the sea, filling the sea with the aroma of wine. Behind him, countless pirates looked solemn, holding a wine bowl in their right hand, and the clear wine flowed down and dripped on the deck. They are respecting their dead pirate brother, extremely serious, extremely serious. If one day, they will also die on the battlefield. They also hope that there is a group of life and death brothers who can toast them with a glass of wine, so that they can still laugh happily in the underworld, brag and coerce to other fools loudly, and tell them that this is my brother's toast. A bowl of wine fell, and some pirates looked even more solemn, and some pirates had tears in their eyes. Among the dead pirates, there were their brothers. Today's Death God pirates are dressed in black suits and are very formal. Their large-scale actions made all the forces around them silently pay attention. This behemoth of the New World has developed to this day, and few people have violated them anymore. At this moment, it is their most solemn and terrifying time. In the naval headquarters, Warring States looked serious, and there was a hint of shock on his face. I got the news that 3 days ago, the Death God pirates fought against the Golden Lion pirates. He took a breath, then looked at the faces of all the generals present, and said loudly, "The Death God pirates have won. The Golden Lion pirates have suffered heavy losses, and the life and death of the Golden Lion Shiki is unknown. There is a lot of evidence that he is dead." All the generals, and lieutenants were startled when they heard the news, and then took a breath. Who is the Golden Lion? The great pirate who used to be as famous as Roger One Piece and Edward Whitebeard broke into the Navy headquarters, fought Sengoku and Garp, and destroyed half of the terrifying characters who had just escaped from the Navy headquarters. Suddenly, he was brought down by the Death God pirates. The first reaction is that the news is true or false. The second reaction is to be shocked, extremely true and false. Once the information of the Navy is reported, there is basically no mistake. In other words, that big pirate Golden Lion was really cleaned up by the Death Gods. As for their strength, we need to measure them again. Warring States took a deep breath and said solemnly, "Such a guy can no longer be controlled by a mere Wuhai position. From this moment on, it can be said that the position of Wuhai, for a person like Yang Qing, is just a matter of thought. Because Wuhai's help is already dispensable. Also, about the other person's position in Wuhai, how have you been discussing recently?" The marshal was talking about flamingos, Doflamingo. Below, a young general asked with a smile. "Yes, it's him." Warring States nodded. According to the report of the Navy, Brother Doflamingo's group of Don Quixote family, after the destruction of the pirate group, Doflamingo has a child next to him, and this vile boy has become more bizarre. His temperament it was more brutal before, but it was calm and fearful. He is a terrible character, and he is also the worst pirate in this era, no one. In these years, he destroyed 4 islands, reformed a pirate group, and named it Tenjin. It seems that he wants to avenge his old enemy Death. Now, Doflamingo's group, a country occupying the first half of the Great Waterway, is developing secretly, and it seems that they have come into contact with one of the 4 emperors. I don't know why the Marshal has this proposal, but there is no doubt that if this vile guy becomes Wuhai, it will be a disaster for the civilians. Warring States covered his forehead and his face trembled. Brother Doflamingo's brutality and vileness were famous in this era. His dearest subordinate almost died there. I understand, think about it for a while. Warring States shook his head and sighed. The young general's eyes flashed, then nodded and sat down, thinking to himself, looks like this fellow Doflamingo has started to act again. The meeting lasted for an hour, mainly to determine the strength of each member of the Death God Pirates, and finally they looked solemn. This chapter is not over. Click on the next page to continue reading. Reluctantly admit that this pirate group has basically completed the transition period from the big pirate group to the 4 emperors strength pirate group. That is to say, they really have the strength to enter the depths of the new world and confront the 4 emperors. After the meeting, Sengoku returned to his conference room. After a little hesitation, he finally took out a small phone bug and dialed slowly. Blue blue blue. The voice rang for a long time, and it was only connected after a full 5 minutes. After the connection, the opposite side was calm. Colonel Roxandy, Warring States said. When? A slight voice came from the opposite side, and Sengoku heaved a sigh of relief, and then asked seriously. I need to know the next whereabouts of the Death God Pirates and their goals. Navy, are you still going to act? On the opposite side, a heavy male voice rang out. Chapter 264 High Position. Warring States' eyes narrowed, and after a moment of silence, he said, Then, I need to know your position. Was silence, and after a full minute, a male voice rang out. A long time ago, I was a member of the Marine Corps. I have justice and kindness in my heart, and I am also a parent, but I am different from that person. Cruelty cannot be tolerated in my heart. I was born to stop him. But obviously, I failed. That person has suffered heavy losses now, and I don't know his specific situation. But, I'm a pirate now. I think I'm very happy as a pirate. Warring States clenched his right hand, his eyes became a little heavy, and said seriously, Rosanity, are you going to betray the sea soldiers? It was still a long time before the voice came over. Marshal of the Warring States period, I really respect you. I understand. Warring States said sadly, has this most trusted and favorite subordinate in his heart reached such a level now? With justice in mind, there are Marines everywhere, aren't they? Ronandy's voice trembled, shaking, showing that his mood is not stable. You're right. I hope everything will be safe for you in the future. Warring States sighed, thought about it, and said deeply, Rosanity, you will always be my best soldier. I will always respect you too. Came Ronandy's voice. After that, the two were silent. A minute later, Warring States silently hung up the phone bug, then smashed the phone bug into pieces, turned around and walked to the cabinet behind him. After searching for a while, he took out a file bag and quietly opened it. Afterwards, he carefully read the information over and over again. It's really reluctant. With some sighs, the Warring States period trembled and shook his hands, putting the documents into the portfolio one by one, sitting alone at the desk for a long time, and then igniting the portfolio, not more than a dozen in seconds. The portfolio, along with the data inside, was reduced to ashes. Silently, the Warring States started to stay alone. What was on his mind? No one knew. Perhaps, he thought of the young boy in the uniform of defense, and of the Marine soldiers who risked their lives again and again to deliver messages to him. Sitting in this position, I really take on too much, resist too much sadness, experience too much separation, and endure too much anger. Half an hour later, he took out a document again, and read it carefully over and over again. His brows became more and more intense. In the upper right corner of the document, there was a bad face, which made him extremely disgusted, but he had to face it. Name: Doflamingo, nickname, Flamingo. Press it for a while longer. Shaking his head, Warring States put the document away and locked it in the cabinet. Then, he began to observe the map of the various sea areas in the New World, and drew out the roads, marked them with red lines, and circled the key areas with pens of other colors. This is where he must pay attention, and analyze them one by one. Which way will he go? Who will be the first target? Kaido, red hair, white beard, or Bigum. That kid is really unfathomable. Warring States frowned, his heart heavy. In his eyes, this terrifying guy is not only tyrannical in combat ability, but also has outstanding strategic layout ability, and he has a natural leadership temperament. Compared with other pirates of the same era, he is the most terrifying. If this guy really develops, it will have the greatest impact on the times and the world. If you can destroy him, there can be no mercy. Bang! With every decision, he must be calm and consider numerous gains and losses before issuing an order. With the strength of the soldiers at the entrance, if they hide and wait for them to act, they will be able to open the gap of the sea soldiers in the New World in one fell swoop, and then open up the situation of the sea soldiers, and stabilize this era of continuous rampage. Think carefully, think slowly, don't be in a hurry. Warring States' eyes flickered. This was a good strategy, and if it was implemented, it would definitely be feasible. As for the orders of the Imperial Court of the World, who would listen to the threats of that person in the face of huge interests? Afterwards, he had 10,000 reasons to explain. Corazon hung up the phone, feeling that his whole body was loose, and the stones that had been pressing on his heart had disappeared. He stood up slowly, took a deep look at the phone bug in his hand, and threw it into the sea, splashing small waves. Hey, Corazon, we're celebrating, what are you doing here secretly? A hand patted his shoulder lightly, and Yongqing appeared in front of Corazon with a big smile. Captain, why are you here? Corazon asked in surprise. Ha ha ha, they have no energy at all, you see, they are all lying on the ground. Yongqing laughed loudly. Besides, today is a banquet. Banquet? How could I allow you to secretly drink here alone? I'm here to get some air. Corazon was very relaxed. Captain, you look like you can drink well. Stop talking nonsense. Hurry up with Lao Su, they drink me one by one. I need comrades in arms, comrades in arms. Besides, we are partners. You are alone, enjoying loneliness here, which I absolutely do not allow. The voice was loud, with laughter, which made Corazon's heart infected immediately, and he also laughed on his face. This chapter is not over. Click on the next page to continue reading. Okay, I'll go right away, we're partners. Corazon laughed. Yes, we are partners. Friends, you can never betray. The two walked 10 steps forward, shoulder to shoulder. Yongqing tilted her head and saw the smiling woman beside her. She couldn't help but smile. Robin, you want to sneak away again? No, Captain, I'm just going to the toilet. Robin stuck out his tongue. We've been together for so many years, do you think I don't know you? Ha ha, don't try to escape today. Chapter 265 _ Yongqing took Corazon and Robin into the place of celebration, which was a wide square, and the place chosen was the island closest to the island where the incident occurred. Thousands of pirates raised their glasses to celebrate this moment. They've celebrated every battle they've won over the years, but none of them were worth celebrating. The impact of this battle is far-reaching. The status of the New World hegemony has been perfectly consolidated. The failure of the Golden Lion laid the foundation for Yongqing to move forward. His fame and prestige rose again. In the past 2 days alone, there have been countless pirates who have chosen to join the Death God pirates, but because of this banquet, they have all been postponed. At the same time, all over the world, the news of the Death Pirates' victory over the Golden Lions is spreading rapidly. Not only the Navy, but even the civilians, and various countries have once again renewed their degree of prudence towards the Death Gods. Somewhere in the world, in the country, in the alley, behind the tall figure closely followed Lu Kadao, walking quickly. A newspaper roared from the claws of the carrier pigeon and landed right in front of the tall figure. He stretched out his hand to catch it. The first thing he saw was the young man who had fought with him. The handsome and noble appearance, the domineering and gentle temperament in his eyes, and the unique taste, make the tall figure can distinguish the identity of the other party at a glance. It's really amazing. The golden lion has been dragged into the water. This is the most explosive news in recent years. Since that year, this guy has changed his personality. He's more mature and scarier. Dragon, what's wrong? A deep voice sounded from behind. It's okay, I just saw some interesting news. Long smiled and handed the newspaper to the rear. Soon, the people in the back began to browse and circulate. When he received the hand of a young boy, a trace of confusion flashed in his eyes, and he looked at the freckled-faced boy with only a little face on the side of the newspaper. This man, so familiar. Ow, Sabo, he is Fire Fist Ace. After this battle, his bounty has reached 300 million Bailey, and he is also a very scary guy. Ace. Sabo's eyes narrowed, then his expression changed, showing some pain. He bent over and hugged his head, groaning. Moaned, I seem to have an impression, but I can't remember it. Have you had a headache again? Everyone said helplessly, picked up Sabo and quickly left here. 5 minutes later, they came to an uninhabited place and began to rest. I pay more attention to him. Long shook his head and pointed at Yang Qing in the newspaper. Everyone was stunned for a moment, then changed his color and said, Lucifer, the god of death, this terrible man. Did he and Mr. Long know each other before? Well, we played against each other. Long's eyes were deep, and his robes moved without wind. What? Everyone was shocked, and their expressions changed immediately when they saw the dragon. The man in the newspaper is an extremely terrifying big pirate. Not only one of Wuhai, but also the overlord of the New World. He occupies the entrance to the New World and has nearly 100,000 troops. If only relying on strength, he can even compete head-on with the sea soldiers, and even is not much different from the 4 emperors. What's even more frightening is that according to the newspaper, this guy actually defeated the Golden Lion. This guy is quite scary. Mr. Long actually played against him. Everyone looked at Long with admiration in their eyes. They knew that Mr. Long was unfathomable and powerful, but they didn't have an intuitive understanding. Today, to know this past. Yes, it's scary. The dragon nodded, and then he stood up. Get ready, get moving. Yes, everyone said solemnly, and immediately stood up. Deep in the New World. On an island, the hearty laughter spread far and far, and the boats on the shore undulated with the waves. Ha 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 ha, this kid is really amazing. He actually killed the Golden Lion, that's amazing. Red-haired Shanks drank a glass of wine and laughed loudly. Who said no? The Golden Lion is not an ordinary character. This kid did a really good job. I'm looking forward to it now. He's here to meet us. Yasop also said with a smile. It's coming soon, I have a hunch, they'll be here soon. When that time comes, we'll be ready to reunite with our old friends. Shanks laughed. I am really looking forward to it. If the Death God Pirates and the Red Hair Pirates unite, what an earth-shattering force it will be. Maybe, this time there is no need to talk about hope for the new generation. Perhaps, this era of pirates will reach its peak, and the second prosperous age of pirates will come. A new king will appear. Will it be the captain? Shanks' eyes widened, and suddenly he slammed the cup in his hand to the ground, making a bang sound. The domineering look of the overlord dissipated, and the terrifying momentum made the crew who spoke loudly immediately shut up. You newcomers, you really know nonsense. Remember, we are just reuniting old friends, regardless of the times. It's just that I'm going to treat my friend to a drink. The red-haired Shanks spoke sharply and solemnly, causing the few people who were just talking nonsense immediately to be silent, afraid to speak in fear, and could only nod their heads in obedience. If these words are spread out, you will die without a place to die. Captain, you are protecting you, you really don't know the so-called newcomers. Beckman said coldly, however, what you said is not bad. Beckman, Shanks. This chapter is not over. Click on the next page to continue reading. The exit shouted, preventing Beckman from continuing to speak. Remember, keep your mouth shut and don't talk nonsense. Yasuo also said coldly, causing everyone to nod in fear. Several bosses all exerted their power, and the crew immediately knew how powerful they were, and no longer dared to talk nonsense. The scene calmed down, and after a minute, Shanks suddenly laughed. I'd really like to know how my old friend is doing now, though. He looked forward, glanced at the newcomers, and his eyes were a little playful. Then, you newcomers, who wants to see the majesty of the god of death? Help me bring a letter to him. The newcomers looked at each other a few times, and then a burly big man stood up and said loudly, Captain, I'm going. I really want to see how the legendary death god is different from the captain. Chapter 266 Still Alive. The burly newcomer's voice made Shanks and all the senior cadres burst into laughter. Ha ha ha, okay, that's you. But don't tremble with fear and lose the momentum of our red-haired pirates. Definitely not, the newcomer said loudly. Looking around, the Whitebeard pirates. This group of people really did a great job. Marco said in amazement, looking at the news in his hand. The Golden Lion was actually defeated by them. Whitebeard let out his own unique laugh, and then said loudly. The Golden Lion has long lost his early spirit. Failure is a matter of time. I just didn't expect that he would be defeated by the Death Boy. It's really a shame for our older generation of pirates. However, his era has passed, the era of Lao Tzu. It's just coming. If you want to remain anonymous and withdraw from the world's stage, just be an old man with peace of mind, but you are not willing to jump out and jump, you are asking for it. Marco closed the newspaper and looked at the tall man protecting himself, with a smile in his eyes. What Daddy said is, compared to the Golden Lion with 1 foot already in the ground, Daddy, you are at your peak now. The most powerful man in the world is not a joke. But to be able to defeat that guy who has no seeds, Reaper is somewhat capable. Whitebeard laughed. I'm looking forward to his arrival. Let's see if it's as Marco you said, it's a good one. Descendants. Quote. Marco's face was full of smiles, thinking of Dylan's who fought with him. I think, Dad, you won't be disappointed. Also, that kid, I haven't decided the battle with him yet. On the other side, the waves were surging in the sky. A burly and tall beast with 2 horns on its head roared and jumped from the high sky island, knocking the island below into a deep pit. Then, just now, panting heavily, he strode onto the ground, roaring up to the sky angrily, in a state of madness. I can't die. I can't die. In this world, is there no one who can kill me? I want to die. I want to die. Why can't I die? Too weak. Too weak. It's all too weak. The newspapers fell from the sky one after another, and the tall, beast-like man pulled the newspaper and saw Yangqing's young face at a glance. In this battle, the whereabouts of the Golden Lion are unknown, and it is suspected that he is dead. Seeing these words in his eyes, the beast-like man's pupils suddenly became sharp, and then he quickly read all the contents of the newspaper, with a cruel expression of anticipation and bloodthirsty on his face. If you can't kill it, then I will kill you. Another place. Mama, the Reaper boy is amazing. It's just a boring boy. How is the food you prepared for me? Ah, immediately. Hurry up or I'll eat you. Yes, yes, yes. The simple conversation showed that one of the 4 emperors did not pay attention to Yangqing at all. The banquet of the death god pirates lasted about 3 days. When everything settled down, Yangqing got up and left the New World, flying towards the Great Channel. After 5 days, he took Moria over. At the same time, Yangqing and the Golden Lion fought in the sea area. Under the sea, a team of sneakers, after unremitting efforts, finally saw the sinking island. In any case, you have to see people in life, and you have to see corpses in death. The legendary great pirate should not suffocate and die in the sea and be submerged in dust. As a member of the Flying Sky Pirates, we have to see off our boss. The vague voice of the phone bug rang, and the pirates in diving suits in the sea shouted loudly. The target has been seen. Next, we will dig this hill. Dig up this mountain, and at any cost, we will pick up our captain and bury him well. The crew said loudly. At the moment when they saw the mountain, no one thought that the Golden Lion was still alive. After all, it has been such a long time, they have been hiding around for a while before they came out. After defeating the Golden Lion, the Death God group did not pay much attention to its remnants. The biggest leader is dead, the legendary pirate group has been scattered, and the rest are just a group of miscellaneous soldiers. The original 100 pirate ships fell apart, and by this time, only 10 or so remained. No one is stupid enough to avenge the Golden Lion. This is the world of pirates. Life is not important, but no one does not cherish it. What's more, they just surrender to the Golden Lion. As for feelings, then the benevolent see benevolence, and the wise see wisdom. The pirates were holding shovels and digging hard towards the hill. After digging for a full 3 hours, an excited voice came out. I saw it, I found the captain. Here he is with me, come and help. After 3 breaths, the voice roared with excitement. Come on, the captain is alive, the Golden Lion is alive. He is not dead. In an instant, the audience shook, and hundreds of figures struggled to swim towards the hill and began to dig vigorously. 3 minutes later, the weak Golden Lion was carried to the deck. At this moment, the Golden Lion is weak all over, blood-stained in many places on his body, and there are many bruised places, his mind is blurred, and he is only 1 step away from death. Ship doctor, pass by. This chapter is not over. Click on the next page to continue reading. Come. There was a loud cry, and chaotic footsteps came out. After half an hour, the Golden Lion, the great pirate in the world, opened his eyes. His voice was extremely weak and full of sighs. Am I alive again? How lucky. It seems that my era is not over yet. The Golden Lion who had long since died in the world was dug up at this moment, and he opened his eyes again. But what will he do next? Is it roaring for revenge? Or incognito, silently waiting for an opportunity? Chapter 267 Captain, you're finally awake. Great, you're still alive. The crew shouted excitedly. It was great that the legendary Golden Lion was still alive. Although they lost to the Death God pirates, isn't the Golden Lion the Golden Lion? The Golden Lion stood up slowly. His body was covered with bandages, and his body looked extremely weak, but in the weakness, his unique Lion King domineering still quietly exuded, looking at the undulating sea. The old big pirate sighed a little. Yeah, I'm still alive, it's great to be alive. Looking at the sunset that was about to fall, he seemed to see himself, the self at sunset, as if the sunset was about to fall into the sea level, and then disappeared in front of people. Am I old? In a trance, he heard again the young man in the battle not long ago. His face was grim, his eyes were sharp, and he shouted at him with murderous intent. Golden Lion, your time has passed. The time has passed. Muttering, the Golden Lion began to doubt, and began to be confused. Yeah, I'm old. The straight waist seems to be bent a little, and the height of the Golden Lion seems to be a little short at this moment. Warm tears flowed from his eyes, and his face was full of pain. Looking up at the quietly falling sunset, he suddenly felt pain. Recalling the glorious days of the past, surrounded Roger, the Pirate King, and wiped out the opponent with just a sliver. How majestic is Whitebeard. He is still arrogantly opposed to him, and he is unparalleled in domineering. Looking at the present day, the lost legs, the aging face, the weakening strength, he has to admit that he is degrading, and with time, he has grown old. I am a remnant of the old era. In the new era, is there no air for me to survive? The Golden Lion was in a trance, looking at the half-sun that had already fallen into the sea level. Suddenly, his face turned hideous. But, I'm so unwilling. Roger, I haven't destroyed you yet. I haven't destroyed the sea that gave birth to you, and I haven't finished yet. How am I willing to end like this? His waist straightened up again, his weakened old body exuded an awe-inspiring domineering aura, and the Lion King's majesty raised his head again, shocking the sea. Captain! The crew behind him shouted loudly, feeling the return of the Golden Lion. Yeah, the Golden Lion nodded, and his expression returned to his usual calmness. After a failure, he has changed, his mind has been reversed, and his will has become stronger. Encountered a blow, but made him more persistent. Are we going to take revenge? Find death in them? Hesitating, the crew members said, there was still a trace of panic in their eyes, the group was too terrifying. Vengeance. The Golden Lion raised his eyebrows slightly, then returned to calm. No revenge, we still have a more important period to do. That kid, do whatever he likes. From now on, there will be no golden lions in this world. But, when I come back again, it will surely shake the whole world again. Let them know, let this warm era know what a real pirate is. Lien Po is old, can he still eat? The Golden Lion is old, he can still eat 3 tans of rice for a meal, his ambition is still alive, and his blood is still hot. He still has dreams, ambitions, and pursuits. As long as you don't die, your dreams will never be cut off. The crew members were shocked when they heard it, and then stared at the tall figure in front of them. At this moment, they admired this legendary figure even more. Little ones. At this moment, the Golden Lion roared loudly. Yes, the crew shouted. Set sail, call me back to the scattered people, we have more important things to do from today. Yes. The high-pitched voice spread throughout the entire sea area. The Golden Lion flying sky pirates sailed against the wind and waves, sailing on the sea at high speed. The power of the pirates made everyone's heart tremble. The black pirate flag was still fluttering in the wind, singing its own pirate song. Time passed quickly, and under the surface of the calm world, undercurrents had begun to surging. The Death God pirates have experienced the Battle of the Golden Lion, and their prestige is even greater, and their subordinate pirates are even larger. While they continue to absorb new crew members, they continue to consolidate the sphere of influence they have acquired. This steady strategy made the sea soldiers and the rest of the forces frowning. This group of people is too difficult to deal with. In the face of the Death God pirates, no one can take it easy. This group of people has a very good strategy, understands management, and has strong forces. Still patient, all forces are patient. After waiting for the moment when the interior of the Death God pirates was empty, it burst out. On the island of Punk Hazard. Yang Qing's face was serious, and she quickly flipped through the documents on the table, her eyes flickering. After reading it, his index finger tapped lightly on the table, frowning slightly. This group of people is really difficult to deal with. It doesn't give me any space at all. It is conceivable that if my front foot just leaves here, my back foot will be completely messed up. And can the remaining group of people be able to stop the people coming from all directions? Impact. I'm afraid it's difficult, isn't it? What exactly should we do? Although I have been to the naval headquarters and got an answer, I also went to. This chapter is not over. Click on the next page to continue reading. The World Court got the promise. However, how will the situation develop? No one is sure. Will the Marines keep their promises? In the World Court, the forces are also complex. He has the upper hand, yes, but will it change later? Who can know? The high-end combat power of the Death God, there are only so many dozen people, when all of them leave, the interior is empty, and people will inevitably drill into the gap. Up to now, all kinds of intelligence details point to one point: sea soldiers, a little restless. Yang Qing's eyes flickered, and he began to hesitate in his heart. What should I do at this moment? To kill, or not to kill? If they kill, they will certainly offend the sea soldiers, and at this moment these leading troops are only exploring the wind, and it is impossible to eliminate the next signs of the sea soldiers. After he left, these people and the support behind him should cooperate with each other, and those who stayed behind would be even more disadvantaged. For more than 10 seconds, Yang Qing was thinking. In the end, his eyes widened and he made a decision. Chilling, hesitating, useless, I am upright and bright, it depends on your naval soldiers, how capable you are. Chapter 268 _ Yang Qing's fists clenched suddenly, and his eyes were extremely sharp. He no longer worried or hesitated, but chose to trust his classmates. If these people can't even withstand the impact of the sea soldiers from all directions, then Yang Qing would rather choose to form an elite pirate group. Because these people will not be of any help to his plans in the future. If it falls this time, then overturn the naval headquarters, and then make other plans. The fist fell, hit the table, and made a dull sound. Yang Qing's eyes were full of murderous intent. The time is set in 10 days. Let's go to Dressrosa in 10 days. Soon, 10 days passed. On this day, the captain of the 10th Division of the Death Pirates and the captain of the Spade Pirates, Ace, gathered on the island of Punk Hazard. Then let's go. The clear voice suddenly remembered, and then a thin voice stood up, slowly put the long sword in his hand behind him, raised his footsteps, and walked forward. Behind him, figures stood up one after another, followed closely behind him, and walked out with him. Along the way, the group was silent, no one made a sound, and a strange atmosphere permeated. 10 minutes later, on the coast, a huge boat stopped here, undulating gently with the waves. At the bow of the boat, a pitch-black sculpture glowed with a dark light that looked extraordinarily mysterious and gloomy. Here it is. So, my friends, are you ready? Experience and knowledge, the pinnacle of pirates in this world. The voice with a chuckle suddenly sounded, and the people behind were shocked, and then reacted with a big smile on their faces. It's all ready. I can't help it anymore, I really want to go and see what they are like now. Do they have 2 more hands than us? HMPH, let's go. Yahoo! Great, we're finally going. Our voyage is finally about to start again. One after another voice came out, making the pirate crew members standing on both sides to greet them with surprise. Then, let's get on the boat. Yang Qing's face was full of smiles, and he lifted his footsteps and boarded the Reaper. Behind him, Drizzt, Dillons, Luo, Robin, Moria, Longbottom, Erdish, Anilu, Ace, Bucky, Nips, Landbass and other cadres, one by one, they boarded the boat with expectant and confident smiles on their faces. At this moment, all members of the Death God Pirates set off, leaving behind a group of crew members at the entrance of the New World. Let's set sail, our first battle is Dressrosa. Yang Qing waved his hand, the huge canvas behind him sank, and then the entire Reaper hummed and began to move. The speed was getting faster and faster. Traces were drawn on the sea surface, and soon they left Punk Hazard, getting further and further away from here, and finally disappeared on the sea. I can't see it, cadres, it's gone. At the port on the coast, the crew looked at the disappearing Reaper with a complicated expression. Okay, don't be stunned, the cadres have left, we have to complete our mission and protect this place from being invaded by the enemy. Turn on the 8th level defensive stance, be careful, and don't let anyone take advantage of it. A sound exploded, awakening the dazed crew members and making them run quickly. Yes, Captain. When the Death God left the island, all the pirate crew members of the island, country, and range under the control of the Death God pirates began to act quickly, and they looked serious. Everyone knows that when the cadres are gone, this is the time to really test them. If they are captured, it will be a shame. In the dark, information quickly spread out from all directions. The cadres of the Death God pirates have already set off. They have jurisdiction over their spheres of influence, and all are under martial law. It is difficult to know the information inside. I have received the news that the group of Death God has set off towards Dressrosa, please instruct the superior. The complex forces, countless eyes staring at Punk Hazard, staring at all the forces under the Death God pirates. Stay on standby, it's not yet time. Sengoku stood in the office with a serious face and calmly gave orders. He turned his head and looked at the map on the table, the red circle marked with emphasis, and fell into deep thought. Dressrosa, Elephant Island, and possibly Wano Kingdom. Who will be their goal? Kaido, or Big Yumum? Perhaps, I can still do this without having to keep an eye on his sphere of influence. However, the procedure should be followed, and we must go. A minute later, Sengoku issued an order. In the New World, warships began to appear, reinforcing the island where they were located, among the naval bases. The generals in charge of the sea soldiers in the depths of the New World also received orders at the same moment. Pay close attention to the actions of the four emperors. If there is a slight disturbance, report it immediately. The navy is already preparing, and the battle will be soon. On the sea, Yangqing leaned against the statue of death behind him, blowing the sea breeze, remembering his various experiences a few years ago, sighed, and said with some nostalgia. Finally, I feel the comfort of this sea breeze again. Ha ha ha, this time you can feel it for many days. It will take at least 2 or 3 months for us to reach the territory of the four emperors. Dylan's laughed and came to his side. That's really good. Yangqing laughed. This chapter is not over. Click on the next page to continue reading. Yeah, it's really good, sailing on this sea together again. Dylan said. Yangqing tilted his head to look at Dylan's and smiled inexplicably. What are you laughing at? Dylan's asked. I don't know, I want to laugh, it's very interesting. Yangqing smiled. Psychopath. Dylan's turn to leave. Ha 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 ha. Yangqing laughed loudly, then restrained his smile, looking at the sea in front of him, his eyes darkened. What will the sailors, pirates, and other forces do? Can they resist the next attack? Forget it, I've already left, what do I want to do? It's up to them whether they succeed or not. I have my battles and they have theirs too. On the deck, Bucky and Ace screamed. Okay, Bucky, you actually steal cards, and, Analu, you can't use your knowledge to be domineering, it's too shameless. Ace yelled, he was speechless to the people in front of him, playing a card, even cheating. Amy's face sank as he looked at Ace. Rookie, do you have an opinion? Ace stood up immediately and confronted him tit for tat. Cheating, it's not okay. Chapter 269 Fire and Thunder. The people around, Drizzt, Law, and Bucky threw the cards, laughed and booed. Ha ha ha, these two finally broke out. Yo, is there going to be a showdown? I'm looking forward to it, who will win? The collision of fire and thunder. Yangqing was startled, turned his head to look at the two, and couldn't help laughing. Ainilu is very reluctant to be a captain. His withdrawn and indifferent character is not suitable for being a leader, but the Sky Island army he formed in the Sky Island seems to be very good. But for the captain of the second team, this proud guy, it is not so easy to let go. A fire, a thunder, they are all masters who don't bow their heads. This is interesting. Anilu's strength, as we all know, after several years of tempering, his physical skills, two-color domineering, have been developed, and the strength of the whole person has improved to a new level. In addition to the powerhouse of Whitebeard's level, even a general, he can fight against one or two. And Ace, this talented guy, not to mention the Devil Fruit ability, the Overlord domineering has been controlled, and the two-color domineering is also growing. In terms of talent, Ace's is even better than Luffy's, and his growth can be said to be extremely fast. After a month of his own teaching, how much his strength has improved, even Yangqing does not know. So to be honest, even Yangqing is looking forward to what kind of scene the two will fight. These days, because of the war, the two rarely meet each other, but when they meet, the atmosphere is always wrong. Everyone present knows this. They are not worried either, both of them are partners, and at most it is a contest of strength. If it really turns into hatred, that is impossible. Indifferent face, do you want to have a contest? I just beat you and escaped my second division captain. Ace said loudly, flames burning on his body. Your captain. Anilu's eyes were a little cold, and arcs flickered on his body. "Rookie, I have to teach you a lesson." "Oh, it's so scary." The people around jumped up, staying far away from these two. They didn't want to feel the power of the nature system. "There is an uninhabited island in front of you, why don't you try it? Whoever wins will be the captain of the second division," Yang Qing suggested with a smile. "Exactly what I want," Ace said loudly. Anilu snorted coldly and accepted the suggestion. The two stared at each other, then snorted together and turned their heads. Drizzt got up, swayed the rudder slightly, changed the direction of sailing, and his face was full of smiles. It was a good show and everyone was looking forward to it. Two people, who will win? "Luo, do you think Ace has hope?" Corazon poked Luo's arm and asked with a smile. "Who knows?" Luo rolled his eyes, then his eyes narrowed. "However, I have great confidence in him." Thinking of Ace when he fought against the Golden Lion, Luo had to say that this kid's strength is still very good. In particular, the domineering arrogance of a tyrant. If he remembered correctly, the captain also had such an aura. 10 minutes later, the Grim Reaper approached the island next to it, then paused for a while. "Then your duel, let's start on this island," Yang Qing said with a smile. "The island is big enough for you to go wild." "You're welcome, just use your full strength." Ace was stunned, looked at Yang Qing, and asked strangely, "How do I feel, Captain? Do you feel like you are watching a play?" "Ah, I was discovered by you, ha 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 ha, not just me, the whole ship is watching the show." The crew all laughed, leaving Ace and Anilu with black lines on their faces. "This group of people is really bad, I really don't want to be partners with them." Ace turned his head and jumped directly off the bow. Immediately after, Anilu also came to his side and said something in a cold voice. "It's a coincidence that I feel the same way." Turning his head, Ace looked at the tall and cold man in front of him and smiled. "That's not bad, it's the first time we two have a tacit understanding." "Humph," Anilu snorted without speaking. "It's about to start, these two people." Lambus suddenly shouted, and the whole boat was clinging to the wall, staring at the bottom, ready to attack. Ace shook his arm, his face was full of smiles, and his eyes became sharp. Opposite him, Anilu's face was cold, and he swung his long stick at Ace. For a while, the two did not attack without authorization, staring at each other closely, looking for each other's neutrality. "What a terrifying opponent, you can't find any gaps." Ace narrowed his eyes and became solemn. Suddenly, his face froze. Woo! The breeze blew, and Ace clearly saw that a blue electric arc suddenly shot out from the hand of Anilu on the opposite side, like a cannonball. "This guy." Ace double. He bent his legs and jumped to the side. "Huh." The whistling sound was only heard at this time, and a second before, beside Ace, a huge explosion had begun to erupt, and the flames shot into the sky. A huge pit appeared on the spot, and on the bottom surface of the pit, a golden coin appeared. Coins. Ace's eyes narrowed. This guy, the coins he issued, are so scary. "Super electromagnetic gun. This is my attack, you have to be careful." Anilu explained lightly. With a flash in his hand, a coin appeared again, lightly. This chapter is not over. Click on the next page to continue reading. Tossing lightly, if it's bombed by him, I'm really worried that you will be shattered. Yang Qing, who was sitting on the bow, touched his nose, feeling a little embarrassed. Anilu, he actually took my joke seriously, and he really developed it. Broke into pieces. You really underestimate me. Ace's eyes slammed, a mighty force emanated, and his breath became much more condensed. A raging flame burned on his body, igniting all the surrounding plants and trees. Anilu's eyes were indifferent, and he threw the coin in his hand again. The next moment, his thumb and forefinger touched it, and then flicked at the coin. Huh! The crisp sound resounded, and a railgun blasted out again. Ace's pupils were sharp, but this time he didn't hide anymore, he chose to face it. The flames were blazing on the fists, and then they touched the Tanjong point in the center of the body, and hit it. Roar! The roar of the fire dragon sounded, and Ace shouted. "Take me a trick too," the dragons roar. Boil roar. A huge fire dragon appeared in the air, blasting towards the roaring super electromagnetic cannon. Yang Qing snapped and covered his forehead. It's a dog, and the style of painting has changed in an instant. Chapter 270 Meteor Fire Sea. On the island, Anilu and Ace's attacks collided head-to-head. On one side is the electromagnetic gun, and on the other is the roaring angry fire dragon. When they collided, there was a loud explosion. The ground was cracked, and the blazing flames and flickering arcs filled the place, making the land black. Wow wow wow, the attacks of these two people are bursting. It's really amazing. On the bow, Drizzt and the others exclaimed. A fire, a thunder, the battle started, and the scene was really spectacular. Ace followed Enel's attack with one move, and a smile appeared on his face. Ordinary attacks won't work for me. Squinting his eyes, Anilu's face was cold, and he couldn't see his expression, but just said two words coldly, really. Crackling. In the flash of lightning, Anilu's figure turned into lightning and disappeared. The lightning flashed, almost in the blink of an eye, before arriving in front of Ace. 30 million volts, discharge. The electric snake rushed towards Ace's body. Ace's face changed, and flames were burning all over his body. The lightning and flames blended together at this moment, and Anilu's expression did not change. Like you, I am a fire, and your thunder has little effect on me. Lightning flashed, and the long stick in Anilu's hand hit Acestang's head. Lightning strikes on the stick, like a long swim, and it looks extraordinarily gorgeous. Armed color. With a loud shout, Ace's fist was covered with a dark, armed domineering, and then he grabbed Anilu's long stick. I told you to be more serious anyway. With cold eyes, Ace's right fist hit the opponent's face directly along Annie Rhodes' long stick. As indifferent as always, Anilu just flicked her head slightly, and then avoided the attack. Ah! Ace roared, his fists covered with armed domineering, attacking Anilu continuously like the wind. The latter kept stepping back with both feet, dodging the terrifying attack. At the moment of Ace's last punch, the tip of his right finger, electric light flickered, and blue electric arcs rushed out, biting towards Ace like a snake. Seeing the color, his face did not change, and the domineering aura in Ace's hand disappeared, and the whole person's perception of the surrounding became extremely clear. ZZ. The blue lightning flashed continuously, and Anilu turned into lightning and attacked Ace. When Ace saw this, he quickly evaded all the attacks of Anilu. The speed of the two is incredible, but in just a short moment, they have fought nearly 1,000 times, but it is a miracle that they have drawn a tie. Scary guy. Ace said solemnly, the opponent has only used the ability of seeing and devil fruit. Although the range of the attack is not large, from all aspects of the battle between the two sides, they are a guy with very rich combat experience. Rookie, you are quite capable, Anilu said with a cold face. At this moment he also recognized Ace's strength. But that's not enough. 100 million volt discharge, thunder long. Roar. The huge thunderbolt rushed out from Anilu's long stick. After reaching the air, it transformed into a long shape, roared, and attacked Ace. At the same time, Anilu's fist was also covered with a dark domineering armament. Ace's face was dignified. He grabbed the Sword of Oath on his waist with his right hand, and then pulled it out, wrapped in a domineering dark-armed color, and slashed towards Thunder Dragon. In the next moment, his whole body was shocked. Ainilu's tall figure appeared behind him, and then the lightning flashed, and his fists were wrapped in armed domineering and attacked him. So fast. Ace was stunned, seeing the news unfold, dodging the punch. However, within an inch, the fist wind still wiped a bloodstain on his face. Afterwards, Anilu seemed to have turned into a violent beast. His fists attacked Ace frantically, and the wind swept across. Ace, with the help of the knowledge and color, perfectly dodged any attack. On the bow, everyone watched the battle between the two, and they were amazed. These two guys have mastered the two colors of domineering, close combat, there is no way to tell the winner. They want to compete, only through the fruit ability. However, if you want to expand your abilities, I'm afraid the entire island can't stand there squandering. Yang Qing laughed loudly. These guys were right, he said with a smile, that's why I asked them to find a deserted island with no one. Otherwise, if they can't do their best, the two of them will feel embarrassed. Go. On the island, the attacking movements of the two were lightning fast, and they had turned into phantoms, but they attacked each other for a full minute, but they still couldn't tell the winner. In the end, the two separated, staring at each other solemnly. It seems that there is no way to tell the winner. Then let me show you the power of thunder and lightning. Anilu said coldly. Lightning flashed in his hand and pushed towards Ace. 200 million volts, discharge. Crackling. The high-temperature thunder and lightning made the air hot, and rushed towards Ace quickly. Great flame ring, Emperor Yan. With a loud shout, the fireball in Ace's hand quickly enlarged, and then directly pushed out the next moment. It collided with the lightning in front, and in an instant, a huge explosion occurred. Anilu's figure. This chapter is not over. Click on the next page to continue reading. A flash turned into lightning, and stood in the air. His right hand was in the sky, and in an instant, over the entire island, thunder and lightning filled the air, dark clouds were covered, stripes of blue dots spread among the dark clouds, and there was a rumbling sound. This dark cloud covered the entire island, and each lightning bolt was 3 feet long, and its power was terrifying. Oh, Anilu is going to make a big move. Is he going to destroy the entire island? Drizzt said in surprise. Looking at Ace on the shore, he couldn't help thinking, how would this kid deal with this scene? Do you want one move to decide the outcome? Ace looked up at the power of the sky, his eyes were full of fierceness. However, it's really amazing, as expected of the captain of the 2nd Division, one person can destroy an island. Go. However, I won't admit defeat, so I'll show you my new tricks. On the Reaper, everyone looked at Ace in surprise. Does Ace have a new trick? Can it compete with this one from Anilu? What does Ace want to do? I'm really looking forward to it. Immediately afterwards, they saw that Ace stretched his right hand to the sky, the flames burning in his body. The whole person seemed to have turned into a fireman, and then shouted loudly. Meteor Fire Sea. Chapter 271 Thunder Fire Island. Suddenly, a huge flame shot up into the sky in his body. When he reached the highest point, he paused for a while, and then plunged down toward the center of the island, like a shooting star. After a breath, the huge flame slammed into the center of the island, and then a shocking scene happened. Boom! The whole island trembled and trembled, with the center as a dot, radiating in all directions. In an instant, almost only a short 3 breaths, the plants, flowers and plants of the whole island, together with the stones, all burned. A fire started. A meteor fell, and the entire island turned into a sea of flames. The scorching temperature caused the surrounding sea water to rise into white mist. At this moment, the entire island was on fire, and Ace stood in the sea of fire, like a god in the fire, and the divine might was unparalleled. Above the sky, there are dense clouds, thunder and lightning, making rumbling sounds. Above the island, flames fill the sky, a sea of flames. The two stood on the ground and the other stood in the air, facing each other tit for tat, and the momentum on their bodies was particularly terrifying. Lei Ying. Anilu stood above the void, and with a loud roar, the thunder and lightning in the sky roared in an instant, rumbling through the entire sea area, and lightning bolts like thunder snakes fell towards the islands below, and the scorching high temperature burned the air. Twist up, and Ace below, seeing this scene, also looked ferocious and roared loudly. Infernal hell burns the sky. Call. As if the wind was blowing, the flames on the island rose into the sky and greeted the thunder and lightning in the sky. In a blink of an eye, the two collided. Lightning and flames intertwined, vertical and horizontal, and collided. The whole island boiled, and the thunder stirred up the fire, turning it into a hell of thunder and fire. The destructive power of these two people is too strong. On the Reaper, everyone was amazed. Under the power of this thunder and fire, the Reaper had to retreat temporarily. This thunder and fire was extremely terrifying, and even the sea water around the island evaporated white fog. The two were like this, one in the sky and the other on the ground, staring at each other. The thunder and lightning turned into thunder long, roaring and falling towards the bottom. The flames turned into ligers and tigers, roaring, rising into the sky, facing the sky. At this moment, on the island, the air is filled with high temperature, and the power of nature is undoubtedly revealed. They still can't tell the difference. Bucky exclaimed, "I didn't expect that, Ace, this kid is already so strong. He is also very hard-working. He is often seen on the island, training himself desperately," Longbottom said with a smile. The battle between the two made everyone watch a good show, and they also clearly saw the destructive power of the natural devil fruit. It was really terrifying. After a full minute, the two people in the sky and the ground stopped. But after they stopped sending power, the lightning and flames still did not go out. They were burning and the thunder and lightning continued to chop down. The attack of these two people has already affected this island. I am afraid that in the future, this island will become a thunder-fire island. Yang Qing shook his head and said, "You kid is quite strong." Anilu turned into lightning and disappeared into the air, and the next moment, he appeared on the death god. "It's a tie. He still has tricks that he hasn't used yet, but it doesn't make much sense to fight again, and casualties are easy to occur." It has to be said that Ace's strength has been recognized by Anilu. "You're not too bad, Icy Man." Ace jumped on the Reaper and said loudly, "It's very strong. You. 2nd Division Captain, I'll leave it to you." Anilu still looked cold. Ace was stunned for a moment, and a smile appeared on his face. "Haha, then thank you very much." Amy's expression was indifferent. He was not keen on these things in the first place, and he was relieved when he handed over the captain's seat. He prefers Dylan's, who is free and doesn't care so much. On the Reaper, everyone celebrated Ace. They also knew Anilu's character and laughed loudly, knowing that Anilu would not be angry. "Ha ha ha, Ace, congratulations, you got your wish and took the first step towards your dream. I can already see that Ace's bounty is going up again, the 2nd Division of the Death Pirates. Haha, that's great." Ace scratched his head in embarrassment and waved his hand. "Don't do this, I can see that it was given to me by Anilu." Anilu snorted coldly on the side, feeling that Ace was still a little acquainted. "Don't worry about him, Anilu doesn't want to do it anyway, ha ha ha. Besides, if you didn't have the strength, you would have been electrocuted by him long ago. This is the position you deserve," Dylan said with a smile. "Let's set sail first, then enter Dressrosa. Don't lose the face of the Death God Pirates." Yang Qing shook his head helplessly as he watched everyone messing around. Drizzt started the Reaper with a smile, and the ship made a roar, then cut through the sea and sailed towards Dressrosa Island. 3 days later, the huge Reaper approached Dressrosa, sending out a dull whistle. The people on the island were shaken, and then, when they saw the huge and incredible ship, and then saw the pirate flag fluttering in the wind, their faces changed at a speed visible to the naked eye. "Dead, die, die, death pirates!" One after another screams came out, and in an instant, Dressrosa's port became chaotic. The flag of the Sickle and Skeleton is just an ordinary small pirate ship, which is enough to arouse the horror of everyone, not to mention the... This chapter is not over. Click on the next page to continue reading. Today, this huge Reaper, they all know this ship clearly, it is the flagship of the Reaper Pirates. In other words, all the Death God Pirates are here. This shocking fact made countless people in the port tremble. On the pirate flag fluttering in the wind, it looks like a devil, and people are afraid to see it. After defeating the Golden Lion, the momentum of the Death God Pirates was already extremely loud, enough to shock a large number of people. Even at this moment, the pupils of each pirate group shrank, converged, then fell silent, and began to quietly evacuate from here, or move towards the extension of the island to avoid this behemoth. In fact, all the members of the Death God Pirates have already left. On the huge reaper, now there is only one person lying on the deck. Well, it seems to remind me of when I was young again. The running under the sunset is my lost youth. Drizzt smacked his mouth a few times, closed his eyes, and started to fall asleep. Chapter 272 The Great Sword. In Dressrosa Island. Except for Drizzt, who stayed on the boat and continued his boat-watching career, everyone else got off the boat one after another. Before everyone noticed, it had disappeared at the port. It's an island of love and passion, enjoy it all. After disembarking, Yang Qing opened his hands and said with a smile. Everyone's eyes lit up, and the happiest moment for pirates was when they were playing. This island, this country, might be really fun. On the whole ship, only Dillons and Landbass came here in advance, but they came here with a mission. At this time, being able to let go of everything and play is naturally very satisfying. Don't worry, do your best, go play and don't think about anything else. Faced with Yang Qing's smiling words, naturally no one would foolishly refuse. Ace, Bucky, La and Corazon gathered together and laughed secretly. The captain's order, let it all go and play, it's a rare moment. I always feel that this man has some conspiracy this time. Bucky, you are an obvious conspiracy theory. I think the captain has come to his senses this time. As a pirate, you can't be tense all the time. You guys are talking too much, hurry up. The four of them whispered quietly on the side, but they were clearly heard by Yang Qing, and their faces darkened. Luo can't wait, hurry up. In the next second, the four figures quickly disappeared here. Immediately afterwards, Dillons, Anilu, also disappeared here. Then Longbottom, Erdish, Lonbaz, Nippus. In a blink of an eye, only Yang Qing, Robin, and Mariah were left here. It seems that this time, I have the honor to accompany two beautiful ladies to travel together. Yang Qing bowed and said with a smile. He, then trouble the captain to protect our two weak women. Robin said with a smile. You are unprecedented, it's the first time to accompany us. Moria stared at Yang Qing strangely. Rather than being with them, I prefer to accompany the two beauties. Yang Qing said with a smile. Robin and Moria looked at each other and smiled. You have good eyesight, and finally saw our beauty. Then, the two raised their feet, leaving Yang Qing aback. Silently touched his nose, Yang Qing also followed. On the first stop, the three went to a quiet bar. The dim lights, the beautiful dancers on the stage shook their waists enthusiastically, and the lively tune made people sway with the tune. The three of Yang Qing chose a table and sat down, looking at the stage with smiles on their faces. Master Captain, why can't we think about it today, so we are on vacation? Isn't there some conspiracy? Robin said playfully. Looking at the dance on the stage, Yang Qing admired the cheerful and bright style of this country, which made people feel happy both physically and mentally. Occasionally, we also need to rest. I hope they won't make trouble. When he said these words, Robin and Mariah covered their mouths and laughed. Who doesn't know that our captain is the most troublesome? Mariah couldn't help but smile. Touching his nose, Yang Qing didn't know what to say, so he could only retort, where is it? In the quiet bar, the music style is bright and lively, and the dance is clear and unrestrained. Sitting here is a kind of enjoyment. Today is the rest day of the Death God Pirates, and Yang Qing gave everyone a holiday. This group of murderous big pirates on weekdays played in groups one by one, with smiles on their faces, completely changed their appearance. In an amusement park, Dillons, wearing a fox mask, turned around and looked at the icy Annie Road. How is it? Is this handsome? I always wanted to wear a mask and be a masked man who saves the world, but I didn't expect it to happen today. Dillons's tone was a little excited, which made Anilu's mouth tremble, and some thought laugh, but can't laugh. Is this the same vice captain as usual? Could it be that his funny attributes are hidden on weekdays? Anilu, you have one too. Dylan's chose a pig's head mask for Annalou and handed it over with a smile on his face. I don't need it, Annalou said lightly. Don't be like this. Our identities are very sensitive and can be easily recognized by others. Take them with you, I chose them specially for you. Dylan's looked at Annalou expectantly. Although what you said makes sense, I still won't bring it. Gently taking over the mask, Annalou's hand trembled, lightning flashed on the mask, and then flames ignited. Dylan shook his head and said helplessly, That's a pity. The pig head mask I chose for you is a limited edition. Annalou's face was indifferent. He passed directly in front of Dylan's, pointed to a place in the amusement park, and said indifferently, I think that is more fun than your mask. Looking down Annalou's finger, Dylan's expression was a little dumbfounded. You actually have such a bad taste. He never imagined that what Annalou wanted to play was bumper cars. On this day, the two seemed to return to their childhood, and they became curious about everything in the amusement park. The four of Ace, at this moment, were leaning softly against the wall in the hot spring. Their faces were full of weakness. It's so soft, I can't use my strength, but it's so comfortable, really. This chapter is not over. Click on the next page to continue reading. Is to enjoy. Ace was lying on the table, the mist around him. It's really comfortable. It seems to have forgotten all the troubles. The hot spring here is really cool. Bucky agreed, and Corazon and Luo also nodded. I think I'd love it here if I didn't get in here and I'd be powerless. These four people are actually soaking in the hot springs here. All four people are devil fruit capable. As soon as they enter the water, they are immediately weak, but the comfortable feeling makes them feel that they are enjoying it and are unwilling to leave here. Longbottom, Erdish and Nips here. No, 1, number 2, and number 4, just those 3, all the rest. Erdish looked at the beautiful women standing in a row in front of him, selected 3 people, and said loudly. Longbottom nodded in satisfaction, while Nips blushed. I'm a merman. No, I don't like humans. Don't be like this, Nips. As a mermaid, you should try a different race. Longbottom's face was pink, and his eyes were already shining. Erdish also nodded vigorously. I really didn't expect that you would bring me to Dabaugian. Nips blushed with shame and had a thick neck. Chapter 273 Bullfighting Arena. 3 smiling women came to the side of the 3, and number 4 came over and looked at Nips, who was bowing his head. A strange smile flashed in his eyes. Today, there is still a mermaid brother. I am so excited. Woman number 4 put her hand on Nips' shoulder, who was shaking and burning. Longbottom and Erdish couldn't bear it any longer. The 2 of them, one by one, took the woman into the house, leaving only a word for Nips. Nips, enjoy yourself, come out and play, don't be restrained. Trust me, you're going to love this feeling. Looking at the woman who was getting closer and closer to him, Nips was trembling all over, nervous to death. This scene made the woman laugh non-stop. And Yongqing, Robin and Moria went to the famous flower field after spending a warm time in the bar. Here is a sea of sunflowers, the overwhelming sunflowers, exuding golden light, can't see the edge at a glance. As the breeze swayed and swayed slightly, everything golden made everyone who stood here feel comfortable. Yongqing, Robin, and Moria lay on the grass beside them, enjoying the breeze, with a comfortable look on their faces. What a great place to vacation. Quote. Wearing sunglasses, basking in the sun, with a beautiful flower field in front of them, the 3 of them were very relaxed. The sunflower represents life and vitality. Whenever it faces the sun, it is full of hope and expectation of life. Robin smiled and said that many tourists around the 3 were here, laughing, running and playing, and taking pictures with each other. Dressrosa can have such a happy situation now, thank me. Yongqing said with a smile. Captain, are you doing your good deeds silently again? Moria teased. Yongqing shook his head and smiled, but didn't say anything. If Doflamingo is still here, it's not what it seems. Enjoy your holiday here, I think they're all having a good time. Yang Qing was right. As the captain said something, every crew member naturally let go and play. Dylan's went to the amusement park and then to the game hall. This guy, Anilu, was unexpectedly so interested in children's stuff. And the others, also bars, sing, dance, and put nothing down. While they were playing and relaxing, the heights of Dressrosa, in the palace, fell into a tense atmosphere. King Riku, there is already definite evidence that the Death God group has entered our Dressrosa. Please ask His Majesty the King, what should we do? Death Gang. King Riku sat on the throne and pondered for a moment before he said, although we have formed an alliance with the Death Gang, after all, they are all evil pirates and need to be guarded against, but, a few years ago, their help to our country cannot be forgotten. Quote. Find them and I'll meet them in person. Yes. It is not so easy to find a group of death gods hidden in the crowd. The appointed officials felt a little pressure. But they still won't give up. Everyone in the country knows that if it wasn't for death, the whole country would still have to be controlled by that hateful guy. The truth of the matter must be truly concealed. In the bullfighting arena, Yang Qing and the three of them took a big bucket of popcorn and found a place to sit down. The three of them were all wearing very cool clothes at the moment, especially Yang Qing, who looked casual in colored shirts and blue shorts, and Robin and Mariah were also very sexy, and Yang Qing swallowed quietly. Saliva. Oh, look at everyone, our Ripper has won 10 games, it's still a rare win streak, he's too strong, no one can lift him from the throne of victory, it's amazing now. I heard that the Shredder Hands came here from other countries across the sea, just to challenge the legendary strongest swordsman, Cyrus. 3,000 victories, but never a single defeat against Cyrus. Can Hands ever challenge it? Let's wait and see. The host, who was shouting hoarsely while holding the phone, was full of enthusiasm, and his voice made the audience below roar excitedly. Henders. If he wins 100 games in a row, then Cyrus will show up and accept his challenge. Who will win this challenge? I'm looking forward to it. In the auditorium, the enthusiastic audience shouted the name of Hands loudly. In just 10 games, this tall, muscular guy in the field has already won the audience's love. Henders. Yang Qing sat in the auditorium and looked at the arena below. Infected by the people around him, the blood flow accelerated, and his face was full of smiles. This atmosphere is really good. Ha ha. In the arena, battles began. I have to say that this Hands is indeed very powerful. In the face of opponents who came to power, he performed effortlessly. Oh, not bad boy. Yang Qing made no secret of his admiration. Our captain, he actually praises others for being strong. Robin covered his mouth and smiled. That's different, our strength is not of the same rank, and we are waiting for him. This chapter is not over, click on the next page to continue reading. Level, has done quite well, can be called perfect. Yang Qing shook his head and said with a smile. The host was shouting hoarsely, getting more and more excited. 59 games, Terror Hands has won 59 games. He is halfway to 100 games. Whether he can win 100 games in a row and let the legendary Cyrus end, seeing how he is not blushing or panting now, there is great hope. Let's cheer for Hands and inspire him together. Infected by the host, the audience became more enthusiastic. Henders. A shout made Hands excited in the field. He clenched his fists and roared violently. Come on, Cyrus, I will not give up, I will defeat you. Roar. Ow, ooh, our contestants are so enthusiastic. The game continues. Chapter 274 Cyrus. Soon, Handers went on a winning streak until the 89th game. By this time, the atmosphere of the arena had reached its peak. The audience roared loudly and looked very excited, reaching the peak. Excited for Hands. After a long time, finally another strong man who could challenge Cyrus came. This made them extremely enthusiastic, and they felt that the blood in their bodies was boiling. They shouted his name loudly, cheering for him. There are only 11 games left. After 11 games, if Hans can still win, then he will face the most ardent challenge and will face the bullfighting arena, undefeated myth, Cyrus. Go on. Hans stood in the arena and roared with a red face. At this point, he himself became excited. Will not give up, never give up the challenge to Cyrus. He crossed such a long distance just to see how powerful that guy is, just to witness how much the gap with him is. The game continued, but every game, the atmosphere was abnormally high. The 90th game. 92 games, only 8 games left. 95 games, Hans is too strong, almost no one is his opponent, facing anyone, it is an instant kill. 98 games, there are only 2 games left to challenge Cyrus, only 2 games left, let's cheer, it's almost impossible for Hans to fail. The host shouted loudly, his face flushed, and his whole body was shaking and shaking with excitement. It's a pomp that I haven't seen in a long time, and it's fantastic. Seeing the momentum of Hans's victory, he almost felt that this guy must be able to fight Cyrus. In a dark room, a tall figure with a burly figure sat on a chair that seemed to be a little small, with a long sword stuck beside him, with a solemn and serious expression. Cyrus, there are people out there who can challenge you. Next, I'm afraid you are going to appear. The voice with a chuckle sounded, and there was no change in Cyrus' face, but there was a hint of war in his eyes. Really, finally there is an opponent who can fight. Cyrus grasped the long sword, it has been eager to fight for a long time. Slowly standing up, Cyrus' tall stature was terrifying. At this moment, he has both his legs, and he was not cut off by Doflamingo. It also proves that this guy who has never lost in 3,000 victories is still in the most powerful period. He is still the legend. The undefeated mythical swordsman, Cyrus. At this moment, his tall statue was admired by countless people in the back hall of the arena. It was loud outside, and Cyrus could hear it clearly. 99 games. There is only 1 game left, the mighty Hans, the shocking Hans. He is only 1 step away from challenging Cyrus. Let us shout his name and support him. Finish the last step. Hans, Hans, Hans. The loud sound made the entire arena roar. Cyrus took a clean silk cloth and wiped the blade of the sword, making the blade brighter, and the expectations in his eyes became more and more. The opponent, finally, has a decent opponent. A flame rose from Cyrus' eyes, and his whole body began to tremble. Shaking, longing, this is the flame of longing to fight. Finally, the loud voice from outside came again, and Cyrus trembled as he grasped the long sword tightly. Hundreds. Hans has won. He has won again, the 100th. Let's shout, he really did, challenge Cyrus. Let's shout the name of Cyrus, the legendary undefeated sword fighter, finally coming out. This is bound to be a bloody battle between the legendary Cyrus and his challenger, Hans. The host's voice was unusually loud, and Cyrus' position could be clearly heard. Then he heard it immediately, one after another, almost overturned the entire arena. Cyrus, Cyrus, Cyrus. Compared to Hans, Cyrus, who was already known as Chedrerosa, was obviously more popular. The sound was wave after wave, and the atmosphere was high. Step by step toward the exit of the arena, the fighting spirit on Cyrus became higher and higher. Even the long sword in his hand seemed to be trembling and shaking. Yang Qing sat in the stand, also blending into the boiling atmosphere, shouting the name of Cyrus loudly, making Robin and Moria want to laugh. It really reminds me of sitting in the audience and cheering for the national football team in my previous life. It made people sweat profusely and their blood boiled. Yang Qing's smiling face was full of nostalgia. Never won. But things like atmosphere are sometimes really contagious. The legendary sword fighter Cyrus, just how powerful is he? Let me see. Cyrus, who was missing only 1 leg in the original book, has completely become Luffy's back, just a soy sauce character. But even so, you can still see how strong he is. Quote. Gradually, with the cheers of the audience, a tall figure gradually walked out and came to the arena. With a stern expression, the bulging muscles on his arms, and his strong body, he was the legendary sword fighter Cyrus. This powerful man is now completely intact. After defeating the mysterious sword fighter pretending to be King Riku, he has become the captain of the country's guards, and can be called the country's #1 master. Cyrus. Yang Qing sat in the audience, watching. This chapter is not over. Click on the next page to continue reading. Looking at the tall man below, his eyes narrowed slightly. Judging from the momentum in his actions, this tall man was indeed exceptionally powerful. The fingers trembled involuntarily. Yang Qing wanted to laugh, but the moment he saw Cyrus, his hands were itchy. Wow wow wow, our sword fighter Cyrus has come to the arena. His stern expression, majestic aura, and that broadsword all show his confidence and strength. He has stood up. So, Hans, are you going to challenge the myth of the arena's invincibility, the legendary sword fighter, Cyrus? The host shouted loudly, and the voice traveled far and far. Hans tensed, then took a deep breath and shouted loudly. I'm going to challenge him. Hoo hoo ho ho. In an instant, the atmosphere in the audience was ignited. Chapter 275 Not enough. Cyrus held a heavy sword in one hand, his expression was solemn, his upper body was almost naked, and he was only wearing short pants that were extremely easy to move. The moment Hans said he was going to challenge, the sword fighter's eyes immediately froze. This is respect for the opponent, and he will do his best in every battle. 5 minutes of rest, our battle begins again. The low voice came from Cyrus' mouth, which made Hans stunned for a moment. I won't take advantage of people's danger. You have fought 100 times. 5 minutes is enough for you to recover. Don't say you don't need it. I will not tolerate an unfair fight, in which case even a victory is a false victory. After listening to Cyrus' words, Hans didn't show any anger, or was turned into anger by the petite shame. He just took a deep look at Cyrus, and then directly sat down on the arena. Ow, ooh, our sword fighter. Cyrus actually let Hans rest for 5 minutes so that the fight would be fair. That's amazing. Just waiting 5 minutes, it's a long time. I believe that everyone here is just like me, and can't wait for this battle. But it doesn't matter. 5 minutes later, we will be greeted by an unprecedented and extremely fierce battle. I can already predict it. It's really great. The host shouted loudly, and the audience below also roared. The atmosphere of the bullfighting arena has always been high. Sitting in the stands, Yang Qing also had to admit that the level of the host is quite good, and it is really good to mobilize the atmosphere. In a few words, the audience's impatience was not only worn down, but also increased for the battle afterward. An expectation. 5 minutes later, Henders sat up. His condition was obviously better. As Cyrus said, he recovered to perfection in 5 minutes. Roar! The battle is about to begin. Hans has already rested to a perfect state. Will his method of killing any opponent in an instant will work again when he arrives at Cyrus? Cyrus has 3,001 games in a row, which can be called the legend of the bullfighting arena. It is unprecedented in history. No one has ever surpassed his record. Will he usher in the first defeat? Let's wait and see. Then, it's a great honor for me to announce the start of this battle. I am so excited. I can see that the two people in the stands are already staring at each other. They can't wait. Then, I will stop talking nonsense. Battle, start. In the arena, Cyrus and Hans, under the almost roaring roar of the host, instantly moved. The long sword was held in both hands by Cyrus, and the huge force drove a terrifying wind noise and slashed fiercely towards the top of Hans's head. Hans was also unequivocal, raising his hands, and the steel bracers greeted the shining blade. When the sound of gold and iron came out, and a trace of electric light flickered out. The huge strength of the two people, even the phone burst out at the moment of the confrontation. Then, Hans roared. His speed was as fast as lightning, and in the blink of an eye, he reached the back of Hans, and the fist of the sandbag swung towards the tall Cyrus. Just as he raised his fist, Cyrus in front of him suddenly twisted. So fast, Hans' pupils widened, and he was very surprised. The tall figure blocked the sunlight behind him, and the shadow shrouded hands, whole body, which shocked him to the point that he appeared behind him like this. Cyrus held his heavy sword and swung it down suddenly. It was hard to imagine that Cyrus could move so fast with such a huge heavy sword. This scene not only amazed the audience in the auditorium, but also made Yang Qing's calm heart jump. "It's so strong. It's really amazing," Yang Qing said with admiration in his heart. Yang Qing had to admit that this Cyrus was really scary. Although he was only holding an épée, and he didn't even have a systematic swordsmanship, it showed Cyrus' strength even more. He summed up and condensed his swordsmanship from countless battles. His sword is an instinct, rich experience, and he has seen countless battles, making him extremely sensitive to the enemy's troubles. This man is terrible. Bang! With almost all the strength of his entire body, Hans just avoided the sword, but what followed was that a large area of the arena was directly smashed into pieces. The huge power made Hans feel a little more dignified in his heart. As expected of a legendary sword fighter. With a loud roar, he charged forward with his fist raised again. Although Hans was shocked, he was not afraid, but his heart was even more excited and excited. At this moment, Hans's fist wind descended like a torrential rain, and landed in front of Cyrus. Almost instinctively, he took any attack from his opponent with ease. At this time, the host's shout also sounded. "Did you see it? Did you see it? These two are really amazing." Hender's fist, each punch contains incomparably powerful power. He used this fist to defeat any enemy. No one can take him more than 3 punches. But, at the last 2 words, the host roared violently. However, Cyrus took it. Not only did it follow, but his expression didn't even change at all, as expected from the legend. This chapter is not over. Click on the next page to continue reading. Gladiator, he is too strong. The mighty Hans seems to have no way to take Cyrus. Hans, a trace of sweat gradually appeared on his forehead. As the host said, he really felt troubled. Cyrus was too calm. The huge power, combined with the attack power of the épée, was even more terrifying. In the eyes of Hans, he felt that any of his attacks seemed to be known in advance by the other party, which was really terrifying. "You're already strong. But, it's not enough," Cyrus said with a grim expression as he blocked another attack from Hans. He sighed softly in his heart. Is it still not good? Still too weak, not my opponent. Call. The breeze blew, and Hans's eyes suddenly tightened. In front of his attack, the tall figure of Cyrus disappeared. Where did it go? Chapter 276 Behind. Cyrus didn't know what to do, disappeared all of a sudden, and appeared behind Hans. He's swinging his sword, and Hans doesn't notice anything. The host's voice was so loud that a look of despair appeared in Hans' eyes. Failed. I'm not his opponent. The next moment, a powerful force directly impacted his back and neck, causing his eyes to fall into darkness. In the audience, people roared and were extremely excited. They clearly saw that at that moment, the undefeated Cyrus disappeared, and then the next moment, he suddenly appeared behind Hans, holding the hilt in both hands, and slashed hard at Hans on his erect neck, causing the latter to fall to the ground in an instant. Almost instantly, the outcome was decided. This scene made everyone understand the power of the undefeated swordsman Cyrus. Cyrus! 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 Everyone is roaring frantically. The enthusiasm of the arena is high, and the sound travels far and far like a wave. Victory! Great swordsman Cyrus, victorious again. His 3001st victory has come, too powerful. Cyrus is a powerful despair. Does he have any opponents? The host was shaking all over. Blood rushed to his forehead at this moment, and goosebumps all over his body with excitement. Seeing Cyrus' victory, he seemed to have exchanged identities with the other party and walked on the stage of glory together. Get him so excited, so exciting. A very strong guy. Yang Qing praised. His right hand trembled slightly. My blood is starting to boil. Seeing Zhu Luxi's extremely quick home in the arena to solve the battle, Yang Qing's whole body was also excited. This is the attraction of the strong. Seeing the strength of the other party, you will always be eager to try and compare. He stood up abruptly, with a smile on his face, strode forward, towards the arena. "Ah, Master Captain, what's the matter?" Robin was stunned, seeing that Yang Qing had actually left her side and couldn't help asking. "I can't bear the fighting spirit in my body, haha," Moria said with a smile. The boiling audience in the audience gradually discovered the difference here. In the auditorium, there was a person walking out of the crowd, with a small mask on the outline of his eyes. From a general perspective, he looked handsome and smiling. He was carrying a slender sword behind his back, which looked like as a swordsman. The sound became weaker, and everyone's eyes turned to Yang Qing's direction. "Hey, this audience, if you want to challenge Cyrus, you have to win 100 games in a row. This is a respect for Cyrus and a protection for your personal life." The host's loud voice came out, and the whole audience exuded a strong smile, not mocking, but purely interesting. However, Yang Qing walked slowly to the arena and stood face to face with Cyrus. "Can we learn a thing or two?" The voice had a chuckle, but there was no doubt about it. Cyrus carefully observed the mysterious person in front of him, and the mask covered his face, making him unable to identify who it was. "Yes." To everyone's surprise, Cyrus agreed, perhaps because Hander's battle just now didn't make him happy. He has silently decided in his heart that if the opponent is too weak for a while, he will probably give in. Under normal circumstances, he will not take the opponent's life in the arena. But just as he was thinking about it, the other party smiled and said something that made him a little angry. "Just suppress my strength to a level comparable to yours, only use swordsmanship. Do you underestimate me?" Cyrus squinted, and silently clenched the great sword in his hand. At this time, the host's voice also came out. Oh, our undefeated swordsman, Cyrus, actually agreed to the opponent's request to fight. It seems that he has not had enough fun. Although I don't know how strong this young man who has just attended the masquerade is, he may be able to add some fun to our arena. Then, the battle begins. There was a deep smile in his voice, and it could be seen that the host didn't take Yang Qing to heart. After all, he was just a guy who ran out of the audience halfway through the audience. Who knows what his strength is? Can he catch Cyrus' sword? The host shouted loudly. In the audience, laughter broke out, and many people shouted Cyrus' name. "Don't you draw your sword," Cyrus said indifferently, "the battle has already begun." Yang Qing smiled and stretched his right hand behind him. "You are very strong. In order to show my respect for you, I decided to use my most cherished sword to fight you. I hope you are not polite." Squinting his eyes, Cyrus tightened his hand with the heavy sword. "I will do my best in every battle." "Good." Thin long sword flashing ice blue and wandering constantly appeared in front of everyone's eyes. It was very thin, 3 feet long, look. It was brittle and seemed to shatter with the slightest force. As soon as the sword was unsheathed, everyone present was amazed. "Beautiful, beautiful, really beautiful, like a work of art. However, does this sword really have attack power? Wouldn't it be shattered at the moment of confrontation?" As you can see, the mysterious, the swordsman's long sword is a guy as beautiful as a work of art. It's so beautiful, doesn't he get shattered in battle? This chapter is not over. Click on the next page to continue reading. It makes me suspect that compared to Cyrus, this sword is too light, thin and brittle. Really, I really don't want to see it shattering. I fell in love with this sword at first sight. It's so beautiful. Cyrus was also stunned when he saw Yang Qing's long sword, but he was only slightly stunned and did not take it lightly. "Then, let's begin." Yang Qing smiled lightly. "This sword is named Longchen. You have to be careful." It was just a friendly discussion, not a life and death vendetta. It was purely for Yang Qing's itchiness. Naturally, he would not use his full strength to suppress his own strength to the same level as the opponent, and then test the swordsmanship of both sides. After 100 battles, what is the difference between my swordsmanship and my swordsmanship? What are the flaws in my swordsmanship? This battle is not just an itchy hand, but more to allow Yangqing to absorb the essence of others in the battle, so that his experience and swordsmanship can be sublimated and stronger. Chapter 277 Thunder Destruction Sword. The ice blue Longchen sword pointed directly at Cyrus. At the moment when the weapons faced each other, Cyrus immediately felt a sharp sword intent locked on him, and his brows became dignified. This guy, it's not easy. Just the breath judgment made Cyrus serious, and he held the heavy sword in both hands. His eyes were fixed on Yangqing, carefully observing each other's every move. It's started, Cyrus. Yangqing chuckled lightly and his footsteps flickered. Call. It was almost a breeze, and Cyrus was shocked, and Yangqing's figure had disappeared before his eyes. So fast. The next moment, he turned around abruptly, swung his heavy sword towards the rear, his waist pulled his hands, and his strength tripled in an instant. The moment he turned around, Yangqing's figure appeared in his eyes, with a faint blue stroke. When the crisp sound of gold and iron came out, and an invisible air flow spread out, and the shock wave formed an air wave, which caused the dust in the range of 3 feet in the center of the two to stir up. Wow wow wow, the mysterious swordsman actually attacked actively. It can be seen that his speed is very fast, and he fought with Cyrus in an instant, and his strength is also quite strong. The host saw the two confronted each other with swords. At first, they were stunned and felt incredible that this kid could really fight against Cyrus, and then they became excited. Don't worry, use all your strength, Cyrus, otherwise you won't be enjoying yourself. Yangqing said in a low voice with a smile on his face. He held the sword in one hand, but easily resisted Cyrus's two-handed sword. This scene made Cyrus' pupils tighten immediately, and then a brilliant light burst out. Ha ha ha, well, we can finally fight a battle. Suddenly, Cyrus withdrew from the épée, and the next moment, before Yangqing could react, the wind whistled, and the épée suddenly blessed and slashed towards him. Good boy. Yangqing let out a long laugh, the faint blue light drew a curve, and slammed into Cyrus' heavy sword again. Bang! The ground they were on sank 3 inches, and the ground began to crack. The powerful force was completely unloaded into the arena below, and the power of these two people was very terrifying. Chop 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 chop. Cyrus was full of fighting spirit, his hands were constantly waving, the wind blew, and Yangqing's black hair was blowing constantly. Forced into a disadvantage. Pure swordsmanship can be so powerful. Yangqing thought deeply. Compared with fancy swordsmanship, slashing, etc., Cyrus' swordsmanship was summed up and comprehended from the battlefield. He paid more attention to instinctual slashing. It was not so fancy, but it was simple and direct, and it was equally powerful. Call. The strong wind blew, and the heavy sword fell with a heavy and dull force, and then slammed into Yangqing's Longchen sword. When the two touched, there was a loud bang, and the stones on the arena were flying, making it look chaotic. This scene surprised everyone in the audience. With a face of 134 swords, the speed of the two of them was surprisingly fast. During the confrontation, the electric sparks flickered and the wind surged. At this time, the audience had fallen into a state of silence. Even the host was stunned. After a long time, he was like waking up from a big dream and swallowed his saliva. Strong. Too strong. The voice was still low at first, but as he spoke, it became fluent and louder. This mysterious insight is too strong. He can actually fight with Lord Cyrus. Ah. I feel my blood is boiling. This battle is really great. The host's voice was very loud, and Hans, who had just fallen into a coma, was woken up. When he realized that he had been defeated, Hans sighed. He finally realized that his strength was too far from that of the legendary character. But at this moment, he heard the cry of the host. What? Someone is actually fighting against Cyrus. Hans immediately sat up with a look of shock on his face. He quickly ran to the door of the window, and then saw the small arena. The two figures kept moving, waving their long swords and fighting together. So fast, so strong. Hans was shaking all over. In his eyes, the speed and strength of the two men surpassed him by too much. Cyrus, you are really good. Yang Qing's laughter entered Cyrus' ears, making the latter's heart dignified. At this level, is it still so easy? It's really strong. Cyrus' heart burned, and the raging fighting intent made him roar, and his strength was even greater. Faster, stronger and more responsive, Cyrus exploded. Woo! With the sound of wind, Cyrus suddenly disappeared, Yang Qing's pupils suddenly widened, and the light in his eyes was like fire. Good! With a loud shout, Yang Qing clenched the long sword in his right hand. Sword 3. Thunder Sword of Destruction. Cyrus jumped up suddenly, the strength of his legs surged to his waist surged to his hands, the majestic strength made the heavy sword in his hand hum, and the air also hummed. Start trembling. The powerful sword pressure was formed in an instant, and then it was gathered and compressed by it, preventing him from erupting. At this moment, Cyrus' speed was as fast as electric light, and almost instantly, he came to the top of Yang Qing's head. Bang! Thunder Destruction Sword. This top-down sword hit the Longchen sword in Yang Qing's hand. This chapter is not over. Click on the next page to continue reading. The sword intent contained in Jian San suddenly burst out at this moment. Buzz! The surrounding arena began to collapse, and cobweb-like cracks spread. In just 2 breaths, the entire arena was completely cracked. The terrifying destructive power of the two was exposed at this moment, causing countless audiences to take a breath in shock. Then the next moment, the swords in their hands swung again. Sword 5. The sword intent was even more fierce, and it rose into the sky. The sword in Yang Qing's hand was already at a strange angle, and it moved forward. Fire Destruction Sword. Cyrus roared violently, bursting like flames, and the heavy sword was swung out by him again. Faithful swordsmen, wielding light or heavy long swords in their hands, slaying enemies for fun. At this moment, both of them are excited. This is the duel of swordsmen, hearty. Bang! The wind was surging, and the arena was filled with dust and sunken again. Ah! 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 He! The attack of the two of them completely destroyed the arena. Too strong, too strong. The host shouted in astonishment. Chapter 278 King Riku. The destructive power of the battle between the two was astonishing, leaving the people present stunned. The golden electric light shot out at the moment of the collision. The bullfighting arena is constantly sinking, and the cracks like spider webs are constantly spreading out. Wind Destruction Sword. Janba. The sword moves are constant, and the confrontation between the two is the peak swordsmanship duel. In Yang Qing's heart, this duel is different from the one with Hawkeye. Cyrus's is purer and simpler, pointing directly to the simplest way. In this duel, he combines the swordsmanship he has learned with him. Together, we learned a lot easily. Thunder Sword of Destruction. With a low roar, the heavy sword in Cyrus's hand was even more dull, and the pressure was even heavier, and the pressure of the sword made the air squeak. And Yang Qing's eyes also burst into a dazzling light, as sharp as a sword. Sword 10. Bang! When they collided again, the entire arena shook and shattered. This time, during the collision, the bullfighting arena was completely turned into huge rocks. The figures of the two jumped out of the stones with the projection, and the next moment, they stood facing each other on the stones floating in the water. Sure enough, it didn't disappoint me. It's so cool. Yang Qing's eyes were full of smiles, and he suppressed his strength. Cyrus was a very good opponent. Strong, really strong. But, I won't give up. Cyrus' eyes glowed like fire, bright like a beacon. The next moment, the two of them bent their knees together, burst out from the standing stone, and the two swords collided fiercely. Thunderfire Destruction Sword. Sword 13. Buzz. The air was twisted, and the water surface below was oppressed by the sword pressure, and it sank more than a foot high, and then at the next moment, when the two separated again, the water's surface burst out, and the water splashed and splashed the two of them. All in one. Woohoo! The series of attacks had already made Cyrus gasp for breath, and the heavy sword was also a heavy burden on him. Yang Qing still had a smile on his face, and his breath was not disturbed at all. With all his strength, Cyrus would not be able to catch his blow, but fighting like this was not very interesting. Sword 15. Seeing that the tall man in front of him could withstand the attack of his sword 13, Yang Qing directly used the sword move behind him. No, it's too fast. This sword. Cyrus' pupils shrank, and he was shocked to see Yang Qing's figure coming quickly. But the next moment, his whole body trembled, and a fighting spirit called Unyielding rushed out into the sky, making him jump up immediately. How can I not? I can't lose. With a roar, Cyrus unleashed one of the most powerful sword moves in his life. Sword cut, Unyielding fighting spirit. Bang! The long swords of the two men slammed into each other again in the air, and the sword pressure rushed recklessly, and a gust of wind spread out from the place of the two men in all directions. The surface of the water below was lowered even lower, and countless swimming fish flicked their tails in the air in horror. In the audience, countless people were fascinated and full of shock. The slashing of these two people has formed such a powerful force, which makes everyone feel incredible. The host's voice came out intermittently, and he didn't know what to say. Of course, no one cared what he said at the moment. Cyrus gasped for breath, his eyes filled with war. In the last moment, he felt that he had made a breakthrough, and at the same time he swung the sword, he knew that he had reached a higher level and became stronger. That's right, you have combined your mental warfare with your sword skills. You have formed a fusion of spiritual and physical strength, and your sword skills are even stronger. Yang Qing said with a smile, then, next, maybe can I do this trick next? A flick of the ice blue Longchen sword, it traced an erratic trajectory in the air, and Cyrus' pupils shrank. Just now, he has reached his limit, and he has also issued a blow that exceeds the limit. So, can this move be sustained? By this time, Cyrus had deeply discovered that he was not the opponent of the guy in front of him at all. This person, unfathomable, who is holy? Just as the two were about to confront each other, a large number of guards suddenly poured out of the passages in all directions of the arena. When Cyrus saw this scene, he was slightly taken aback. Yang Qing's eyes flashed, and a hint of helplessness appeared on his face. Slowly inserting the Longchen sword into the scabbard behind him, he smiled bitterly and said, "It seems that we can't fight any longer." Because at this time, Yang Qing had already seen the burly figure behind the guard. It was King Riku. In the audience, everyone looked at the figure in amazement. King Riku, how did he come here? Your Majesty, why are you here? Could it be that he was also attracted by this battle? At the entrance of the passage, King Riku stood closest to Yang Qing, his face full of majesty, and he said solemnly, "The head of the god of death came to visit me in Dressrosa. Why didn't he come to see me, the master? It's really disrespectful that I didn't treat you well." Glancing at the destroyed arena, and then looking at Cyrus, who looked confused, King Riku said again, "Looks like you had a good time." Shaking his head, Yang Qing took off the mask on his face, revealing his face. The first one who was shocked was Cyrus, followed by countless audiences, dumbfounded, really dumbfounded. This chapter is not over. Click on the next page to continue reading. Dumb Mouth. Death. Lucifer. The overlord of the New World, the head of the Shinigami group, the legendary terrifying guy who can fight against the four emperors such as Whitebeard. That's the legendary big pirate who came here quietly. People were talking in low voices, their faces full of shock. I can't believe that the legendary god of death turned out to be such a person. King Riku looked a little helpless. You and I are allies, so you don't want to see me. Yang Qing embarrassedly touched the back of his head and said with a smile, "Not really, I'm just here to play. I'm sorry to trouble you." Being in such a position, you are here, and the meaning itself is very unusual. I haven't slept well in the past few days. There was indeed a trace of exhaustion between King Riku's brows. It would not be too easy to let a master like Yang Qing wander around his country like a destructive weapon. Fortunately, finally found each other's clues. Then, please go to the palace with me. After forming an alliance for so long, I haven't really interviewed you with me. Chapter 279 Drought Jack. Turning around, he shrugged helplessly towards Robin and Mariah in the audience. The two looked at each other, smiled, also stood up and walked towards Yang Qing. Then thanked King Riku for his warm hospitality. Yang Qing's face was full of helplessness. King Riku naturally saw the reluctance of the person in front of him and laughed. It seems to bother you. Waving his hand, Yang Qing didn't say anything else, raised his foot and left here. Robin and Moria followed behind Yang Qing, and the three quickly left here with King Riku and his party. Half an hour later, in the palace heights. It's the first time you've been in the alliance for so long. Is there anything important? King Riku respected Yang Qing very much. First, he was afraid of the terrifying strength of the former, and second, the other party was his own lifesaver. Benefactor. 3. The two sides are still in an alliance at the moment. It's just for tourism. However, since His Majesty the King found out, it seems that my vacation should be over. Yang Qing said with a smile, a little helpless on his face. Oh, King Riku was a little strange, but Yang Qing didn't explain it. Soon, the news of the death god's presence spread throughout Dressrosa. The crew members who were playing in various places were stunned for a moment, and then helplessness appeared on their faces. Sure enough, soon, the phone worm rang, and only one sentence came out. Meet at 8 tomorrow morning, ready to go. The vacation is over. Everyone murmured, but they didn't give up. After letting go and playing for so long, they were already very satisfied. On the second day, at the port of Dressrosa, a group of people gathered on the Reaper. Let's set sail, next, let's do it. Good. Yang Qing's light laughter came out, and all the crew members shouted loudly. Drizzt started the Reaper, and the ship let out a roar and sailed slowly. 3 minutes later, when Dressrosa entered, the Reaper was no longer in sight. And at this time, in the palace of Dressrosa. Your Majesty, Death, the Grim Reaper is gone. A panicked voice sounded in King Riku's ear, causing King Riku, who was finishing his makeup, to be stunned, and then shook his head to understand. I see, let's go. There was no surprise in the voice. The moment he invited the latter into the palace, he knew that this person would not stay for long. The Death God pirates are good or evil. In fact, King Riku doesn't care. All he cares about is whether it will pose a threat to Dressrosa. After a short contact, he probably saw that the God of Death was a person, not the kind of person who ignores it and is extremely evil. However, what he hopes more is to let this group of people leave here. No matter what, the power of this group of people finally made him too jealous. Everything is fine, but if something goes wrong, the entire country will be destroyed. As the Reaper set sail, Yang Qing and others concentrated again. Where is the next stop? Ace asked with a smile. I heard it's Elephant Island. Bucky said. Elephant Island. Does Elephant Island mean the island of elephants? Luo asked suspiciously. It is said that Elephant Island is a huge pictographic island that will keep moving. I don't know if we will encounter the tower. Elephant Island is just a precise target. If we don't encounter it according to the route, the island we want to move forward. Wano country. Drizzt turned back and laughed loudly. What is Wano country? Ace asked like a curious baby. Wano country is a country composed of samurai, with very strong strength. According to legend, in this country, there will be powerful dragon swordsmen and ninjas. Moria explained. Dragon-slaying swordsmen, and ninja. Bucky's eyes were full of light. It sounds so interesting. Of course, the most important point is. Moria's eyes turned to the figure on the bow. Her eyes narrowed slightly. The country of Wano is now under the control of Kaido, one of the 4 emperors. What? The crew members were shocked. and they couldn't imagine that the first stop was to go straight to the lair of the four emperors, and then smiles appeared on their faces. That's really interesting. So, our first battle is to face the Kaido pirates, one of the four emperors. Ace laughed. I am really looking forward to it. What will happen to the legendary four emperors? Strength. Quote. I won't let you down. A clear voice came. Yang Qing jumped off the bow of the boat and walked towards the crowd with a smile on his face. The legendary four Emperor Kaido, as far as I know, is one of the three major disasters. The first drought Jack, there is a bounty of 1 billion, presumably Kaido should be very strong. It's hard to say, this is a battle that wiped out our entire army. In the second sentence, Yang Qing laughed. Billion. Everyone was shocked to the extreme. If they remembered correctly, after the captain raised the bounty a few times, it was only a bounty of 700 million. And one of the three major disasters of one of the four emperors has a bounty of 1 billion. My dear Captain, you are scary, right? 1 billion bounty, that's too scary. Bucky stammered. If there is a billion, let me calculate. Captain 700 million, Dylan's 500 million, that is to say, one of them needs 2 members of our pirates to deal with. No, Bucky, it's not like that. Dylan's patted his shoulder. After the captain became Wuhai, our bounty basically did not go up. Therefore, from the bounty, it is rare to see the strength gap between each other. This chapter is not over. Click on the next page to continue reading. Who is stronger will only be known after real contact. You must know that the captain of our family is a strong man who defeated the Golden Lions. After a few words, the crew members present came to understand. According to the bounty comparison, there is a big gap between the bounty of the Death God and the other party. Haha, whether it's strong or not, you won't know until you fight. For Emperor Kaido, I really want to try his strength. Ace laughed. Be careful to die. Luo pouted, disdainfully. Seeing how ambitious everyone looked in front of him, Yang Qing laughed out loud. It's best to have fighting spirit. We are facing the pinnacle of pirates this time, so we must go all out. That's natural. I won't lose this battle even if I die. Bucky said loudly. He was very embarrassed when he faced the Golden Lion, and he was determined to save face. Chapter 280 Hanrod. We too, this time, we will never lose again. 4 emperors only, pull them down, we are also emperors. One by one, they said loudly. The smile on Yang Qing's face was very cheerful. His opponent was the 4 emperors, and he would not despise him in the slightest. Especially Kaido, known as the strongest creature on land, is quite a terrifying existence. While the Reaper was moving fast, a tall pirate with a bruised body and a bruised face on a small boat gritted his teeth desperately. Damn Kaido pirates, damn Jack, damn Hipshead, damn Kim Rami. I won't let you go. Even my red hair pirates dare to attack. I, Hanrod, won't let you go. Roaring at the undulating sea for a long time, it was only after he was out of breath that Hanrod remembered what it was like, touched his arms, and took out a crumpled letter. Lauder breathed a sigh of relief. Fortunately, the letter is fine, otherwise, I really don't know how to face the captain. Thinking of the task of this trip, Hanrod couldn't help but feel a headache. It has been a while since he set out, and he was unlucky to encounter Jack, one of the 3 major disasters of the Kaido pirates, and the latter also took his own men and shot him like a joke. His strength was poor, his nose was bruised and his face was swollen, and then he fled with all his might, only to get his life. But it wasn't over yet. After escaping, the boat was gone. He swam with his hands, tired like a dead dog, and went to an island. With great effort, he borrowed a small wooden boat. However, the wooden boat has sailed until now, and I am afraid it will not last long. He saw that the keel of the boat had broken in many places under the impact of the sea. How can this be good? Is it the first time that I, Hanrod, joined the red-haired pirates to perform a mission, and I have to fail like this? Clenching his fists hard, Hanrod was full of unwillingness. It is really unwilling to die in the sea like this. Because the ship was destroyed by Jack and others, all the food that was originally there has been lost. In the past few days, the food obtained from the residents of the island has almost been eaten. It is conceivable that in this vast sea with no end in sight and strange climate, the probability of his survival for Hanrod is infinitely close to zero. It's over. Hanrod was about to despair, and at this moment he felt that his strength had disappeared with time. He became weaker and weaker, and his stomach, and even the numb ones stopped screaming. If it goes on like this, I'm doomed. But he was very helpless. In this sea, he had not seen the passing ships for 3 days. Lying helplessly on the deck, Hanrod felt that he could only wait for death. But just as he closed his eyes, a crisp whistle sounded. Woo! Hanrod opened his eyes immediately, and there was incredible in his eyes. What is this sound? He struggled to get up, his eyes swept around, and 3 seconds later, he saw a black shadow on the sea level approaching quickly. Ship. There is a ship. It's not a hallucination, is it? At first glance, I felt like I was in a dream. After a second glance, Hanrod raised hope. At the third glance, Hanrod became excited. There is a boat. I am saved, I will not die. Ha 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 ha. He was so excited that he cried out, but because he hadn't been in water for many days, he couldn't even shed tears. As the shadow on the sea level got closer and closer, Hanrod finally saw it clearly. The first thing he saw was the huge pirate flag at the top of the ship. Skulls. Pirates. Hanrod's pupils shrank. If it is a pirate, then there is a certain risk. After all, pirates are not kind people. If you meet someone who is nice to talk about, it's fine, but if you meet someone who is vicious, you might just kill yourself. After realizing the power of his own at this moment, he couldn't help but let out a wry smile. I'm afraid it's a civilian. I'm no match now. It's really a tiger falling and Pyongyang being bullied by a dog. After all, he is also a pirate with a bounty of 200 million, and he will have this day. Soon, the huge shadow was getting closer, and Hanrod began to marvel. What a big ship, and that pirate flag, so familiar. Thinking about it carefully, Hanrod suddenly shuddered, and his eyes shone with surprise. Isn't this the flag of the Death God pirates? It's him, yes, it must be. I can't remember wrong. Hanrod got excited and shouted with all his strength. Hey, help! The ship was still far from Hanrod, and the sound disappeared halfway through. But Hanrod was out of breath, but he didn't give up and kept shouting. On the Reaper, Drizzt, who was among the poker players, was suddenly startled. Did you hear that? What? Drizzt, don't divert your attention, are you going to be out again? No, someone is calling for help. It must be fake, this guy Drizzt is fooling people again, and then changing cards while we're not looking. Drizzt didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He swore that he really didn't lie this time, that he really heard someone shouting for help. Ignoring the dissatisfaction of the others, Drizzt stood up and ran in the direction of the source of the sound, then his pupils shrank. Someone is calling for help, I have to get the boat. This chapter is not over, click on the next page to continue reading. Lean over. Hey, although you are a navigator, don't change your route at will. Cut, Drizzt exclaimed, ignoring Bucky's joke. On the wooden boat, Hanrod saw that the huge hull of the Reaper changed direction, and almost jumped up with joy, but unfortunately, his physical strength was poor and he couldn't move. Here, I'm here. The weak voice came from a distance, and Hanrod was about to faint. 5 minutes later, the huge Reaper stopped beside the wooden boat. Compared with the gigantic Reaper, the wooden boat is so tiny that it is barely visible. But the sharp-eyed people saw Hanrod lying weak and panting on the deck of the wooden boat. It's really there, Drizzt, you have good ears. Bucky laughed and jumped off the boat to the wooden boat. Hey, are you still awake? Bending down, Bucky looked at Hanrod, watching the latter muttering non-stop. He turned his head and shouted at the crowd on the bow, throw me a bottle of water down. Ace smiled and threw the water he hadn't drank just now.